Not good at that game. Whatever, choose me.
I think, but I make see it. You're the kids are all out of school.
Just trying to find out.
I never kind of things.
Vice Chair for the.
Okay.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Lisa, we're good to go.
Thank you.
Well, now, welcome everyone to the January 22nd board study session at 4:03. And we will do roll call. Sandra Barnes. Here. Beth Vermentier. Here. Bill LeBron. Daryl Thompson.
Here.
Dr. Spencer Holzer.
Here.
And Lisa, myself, is here. Okay, we'll now stand for the pledge of allegiance. Salute. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're now going to public comments on study session items. The board will extend an invitation to interested parties who wish to speak on items that will be discussed during the study session. For those attending remotely who wish to comment, use the raise your hand button to be called on to speak. The Brown Act does not allow the governing board to discuss or take action on any item that is not posted on the agenda. Is there anyone online, Andrew?
No, there's not.
Thank you.
And we do have one parent who would like to address the board.
So is that?
Next,
Okay, you come on.
So my name is Hope Nesmith. I'm an employee here in Human Resources, but today I'm going to speak as a parent. And it's related to the experience that we have had as a family with the studios at Central. So we just want to make a comment, and I'm speaking on behalf of my husband as well. What a significant kind of change there's been at the studios. They implemented the VAPA plan, I think, roughly 3 years ago. And my daughter at that point attended. It has significantly grown. My son, who is in 8th grade, avid sports kid, basketball, baseball, you name it, he does it. And he participated in the play, was it Hallmark musical for Christmas this year, and thoroughly enjoyed it. They're anticipating another play as part of Miss Sarah Bryant's class for theater. And he will be experimenting with doing the like visual and sound effects that I think are new to the school site. So I just wanted to voice what a significant change has happened and how much my child enjoys going to that school.
Thanks. Thank you.
and thank you. And just we recently purchased a new soundboard. That's a very much state-of-the-art soundboard that you would find in any high-end entertainment or and what's significant about that is, like she shared, and I know her son Eli, and I talked to him the other day and I said, Eli, are you gonna sing in the musical? And he goes, I'm not singing in the musical. But he did have a major significant part in the play. And our kids did a 90-minute play just before Christmas. And they did a phenomenal job memorizing their lines and stuff. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see it, but it was great. But I'll share with you that I'll make sure that you guys get invited to the musical. But he's now saying we want to do the soundboard for that because we got, really good new state-of-the-art equipment and just another opportunity for kids to kind of delve into different things. And thank you, Hope, for coming and sharing that with me. And I want to share that, just prior to Christmas, I think I forwarded it to the board that another one of our employees who's a teacher up at Ophir shared, with us what a significant difference that school is having. And I will tell you honestly that prior to this year, that particular parent who's an employee of the district was considering moving their kids to other places. And I said, no, give us a chance. And they're having a very good experience there. So thank you.
Encountered a fifth grader the other day from Ophir. And I found out she was from Ophir. I said, oh, Ophir's Ophir's. Boy. They make sure there's no slouches there. I said, and she said, no. They make us do a lot of work.
So anyway, thank you, Hope, for sharing that positive news about studios. We appreciate that. And I think as we kind of get into tonight, we'll kind of talk about some of the different projects. I know Vince is here. I asked the principals to come. Some of them may show up because we're still doing some PD today. But as you requested after the last board meeting, moving forward, principals will be at our regular scheduled board meetings.
Is there any more public comment? I would also like to note that Bill LeGrone is here. Okay, we are now gonna go into our study session, board governance statement.
Okay. So, you can be favor and pass these out. And Kim, would you mind giving us a little bit of background about this?
Well, I think Sandra, and Bill might be the two that have been here when we've done this before, but the last time we actually did this was in 2017. So it's just that, it's a governance statement that the board puts together, things that they would like to accomplish, I think, and see how an individual trustee is to conduct themselves, the governing board, the board responsibilities. So it's just some statements that they would like to, if they want to create one, they could use this one if they'd like, or if there's new items that they would like to put on there. Sandra, you were involved in before, do you remember?
So when I endeavored to become a board member, it was through appointment from a previous board. And members were quite contentious. Very little got done while they were sitting. Say they were contentious, might be putting it very diplomatically. So when I came on board 2 years later, the entire board was brand new. All of us were new board members. And we endeavored to craft a governance statement dictating rules of decorum, board focus, what the purpose of the board is. And so that's why this is, it's not anything that is district mandated. It's not mandated by California School Board Association. It's just something that we did and that boards do on occasion as an agreement of mutual respect and identification of us as a board. It also serves as something of an explanation to newer board members about their place on a board and to emphasize that we work as one body and that there is no unilateral decision making. We all respect each other's opinions and our backgrounds and our experiences, and we bring those to the table in order to make those informed decisions that are the best for our students. And that's the whole purpose of this exercise.
This was something that was typically reviewed in January.
We don't do it every single year, though.
Well, and in our training a couple of weeks ago, they kind of talked about, and that's kind of the genesis of why it's on the agenda tonight. Just just to let you know that this is something that we have done in the past. In my time working with the boards here, we haven't had issues with any kind of conflict or speaking over one another or respecting each other's rights. So this is just something that we want to bring to your attention. If we want to revisit this, we can, formally put it on the agenda. But as of right now, just kind of bringing it to your attention of something that we can do. As you can see on the back, it's, voting on, this is not a voting item tonight. But if we want to say, hey, you know what, we'd like to take this current statement and either update it and bring it back and vote on it, or if we want to just take this one and just kind of say, yep, this board, reemphasizes that this is something that we want to do, we can do that as well. So that was all.
Okay. Since it's not.
So you can tell me or Tim that you'd like to bring it back for an action item, or, we don't need to do anything because we don't have an issue, at this time.
Is this something that the board would like to keep as is, or would we like for it to come back at another time? We voted upon. I see the original signers were Sandra and Bill. Oh. I saw Amber Durbin. Yes,
Yeah,
You see her?
she's living up in McGillian.
She lost her house in the camp.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, she's now remarried. Yeah, living best life.
So I believe. Do I have any motions? Do I have anything from the board that's?
Any
Any
recommendations?
recommendations, yeah.
It's pretty good to me.
Bill, what do you think, since you were one of the original signers on this? Are you?
You were the original
I'm
planner of the
fine with
declaration.
it. Fine with it either way. It has no teeth. It just is more, since
Information.
we're elected, it's really, what are you gonna do if I don't? So, really that's what it comes down to. So I don't like to waste a lot of energy on these things because they're just placating people, but if that's what needs to be done,
Well,
this should just be the standard in which we try to live by. That's just, I think, so. I have no problem if we want to put it on there. I'm perfectly comfortable signing it. And doing my best to adhere to it. I'm not gonna promise I'm gonna do everything, and I'll do my best. That's all I can do.
Thank you, Bill, for your honesty.
And I promise I won't call it self.
I sure.
I know.
So Madam President, would you like us to update it and bring it back? And, we can just agendize it or we can just move forward and just say, hey.
Let's just go ahead and move forward. I
Okay.
think this is fine, just as it stands.
Perfect.
Okay, we'll move on to the mandated ethics training.
Okay, so this is now state law that every year there's mandated ethics training. And it will say for local officials, there's this handout. And we have a couple different options, but we all have to take this training once a year. You can go online and we'll get you you can go to this, oh, you don't have that?
Well, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure if you're looking at something, I was trying to.
Oh, okay.
It's the same, it's just very limited information on that, but
Oh,
it said
okay.
on the agenda
Okay.
is where you would go.
Okay.
It's really AB 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so
BC.
you have the option. You have the option to do the online training and print out the certificate, or we can hire somebody to train us all at the same time.
Online training. That's fine.
Online training.
How long
Okay.
is the training?
I think
I've
it's,
sat through a few.
I think it's 2 hours.
And it's time, Beth, where you can't just power your way through. They time how long
Oh.
you're at each
Yeah.
one to make sure. So you have to plan a 15-minute break between
Yeah.
each one, so you go do something and come back and answer the question.
Every year that we had to do with the teacher, trust me.
Yeah, we send it on remote, just walk away.
Did you have to
get
do
things
the
done, come back
SB
and-
1865 too, the mandated sexual harassment training? That's every 2 years.
That's
I know,
every
but
2 years, and I don't know if we're. I'd have to check to see if where we're at on that training. I don't know if board members, that's mandated for us, but I don't know if it's mandated for board members.
This site is for local officials only. For state officials, please visit the Attorney General's website.
So I'll find that out, but I would let you know if you have to. And if you haven't had to do that through us, it's still not mandated. But this is mandated, so I will trust that you will do this in your free time. Bill, I heard you're doing better on that now. And
Will there be a ceremony when I get my certificate?
well, actually for you, we might actually do it. So,
I'll hang it up.
so we can go.
Okay, we're gonna move on to district email accounts.
Okay, this is just for information.
Wait, I'm gonna go back. So are you gonna send that to us, the link?
Oh yeah, we'll send that link.
You'll send the link.
We'll send the link.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Kim?
Yeah.
Perfect. So check your email, on a frequent. What that means is, whatever works for you, at least a couple times weekly, if not more. As you know, or getting used to, I send up my Friday update every Friday. I've been pretty good in my 7 years. I've only missed a couple Fridays, I think. And occasionally they come out on Saturday, but so that's probably a good time to check your email. And when we're in a group email like that and you have questions about the Friday update, just hit reply. Try to always avoid reply all, because once we get in a series of emails, that's considered illegal. And so you have questions for me specifically, that's a great way. Occasionally, and lately I've done, like today, I sent a reminder about today's meeting. And so, just like a thumbs up or whatever is works for me. I try not to do text, because that's a serious thing, but that, reminders is probably okay, as long as we're not discussing items and things like that. So, and then you do get, and the district does get spam email or phishing emails from time to time. Like on multiple occasions in the last couple of years, they've asked, they said, hey, your direct deposit got, accidentally deleted. We need your routing number and bank information. Can you please provide that for you so you can get direct deposit for your check? Things like that. Anything that's suspicious, report that to me or Andrew immediately. Districts are getting hit by that quite a bit. So, anything else, Andrew, about district email or anything like that?
No, I think you covered it. And if you have issues with your district email, you can just drop me a line, or that's Spencer Nolan. I can help you, or Garrett can help you to make sure that you're operational. And we do get quite a bit of spam and phishing. Ever since the campfire, it's like we're on the list now. So we get every different kind of one.
So nobody here is gonna need Home Depot credit cards or cards because they're stuck in Mexico, is that what I mean? Or they've been arrested?
They do send out texts and emails in my name. And we just had one recently where they said, hey, this is, and they impersonated me and said, hey, I need gift cards immediately. I'm trying to help out a really needy family. And we had an employee that went and bought some and brought them to me. Yeah, they have a great heart, but I had to say that wasn't me, and immediately I'm sending out additional emails to staff and things, but just be careful that. If you ever have any kind of questions about that stuff, just call me, text me, call Kim. But know that if I'm gonna ask for money, I'm gonna meet you someplace safe, like Bank of America. So I can get it right then and there.
In the emails, Google has a thing about the district's emails. They won't work if you don't have your phone on a lock, like a 4-digit PIN or, some kind of lock.
It's the secondary, where they.
Yeah.
Where you have to do the secondary login,
Mhm.
so nobody can hack your phone.
Moving on to communication with community members.
So when you're communicating with community members in person via email, phone, or social media, remember, all that can be recaptured, if it gets subpoenaed, things, and you do have some protections there, but as a public figure, just be real mindful of your communication with parents and things like that. Even on my Friday update, I'm pretty careful about specifics that I put in there because that can all be, public records requests. And so I'm just careful with that. And what I ask of you when members of the community are asking for specific things or specific help, and just like the training kind of talked about a couple weeks ago, just send them to me. Refer them to me. Hey, I'm having an issue with my kids. Can you help me? And sure, you can refer them to their principal, but you as a board, your employee is me. I run all of them, you run me, refer any of that through me. That way I can, distribute that work to the proper people, whether it's a complaint, whether it's a vendor, and, a vendor's coming to you saying, hey, I got this great program, and we don't want to, it does two things when you can just refer them to us. We say no to vendors on almost a daily basis. I get probably 10 vendor emails a day. Same with Troy and Andrew. So if you have people in the general public that are trying to get us to buy stuff, just refer them to me, and it's really easy for me to say, oh, hey, we already got, that kind of support, or, we already have a vendor for that. We're already under contract for that, things like that.
We also have vendor lists that we maintain. So if a vendor wants to be added to the list, like if we're gonna go out and buy Chromebooks, I have a list of all the people that I hit up when it's time to buy Chromebooks, and I ask all of them, give me a quote on X number of Chromebooks, so that they can be added to the list also.
Does that actually happen?
Yes, all the time.
Vendors will reach out to board members?
Oh, I'm not board members, but me all
I
the
had
time.
one call me on an break at work once.
I mean, it doesn't happen a lot, but it can. And this more happens with the general public hitting you up for different things, and that's, you're a public figure, and that's probably more common, but let me help you with that, with those requests.
We'll go ahead and move on to district data.
Okay, so, and before you start, Laura.
Yes.
I'm gonna ask that after we do the district data, that we'll have Jim, he's later in the agenda, but he's been here at work for a long time, and we'll go to facilities after our data, or
Let's go now.
yeah, Laura, while you're getting ready, Jim.
So we'll go ahead and, we'll move up facilities update.
Log into Google.
Hello, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jim Campola, Director of Maintenance. And I have is the facilities update. And the way I read the agenda was I included the current, complete, and pending. So I'll just go through sites one at a time. The studios, if you look in the back, there's photos of some of the things that are going on. You'll see the photos of the sport court construction. And what it's, the size of it, the magnitude, and what it's taking to get it up. We just did almost finished HVAC replacement at the studios. That was 24 classrooms in the library and the science lab. We're just down to some paperwork and some poll tests. We had that combined with Oprah primary building, a couple portables out there. Now, the money for this came from the COVID funding. It was a CalShape grant where the government said, improve your circulation, improve your way of catching germs before they get to the people. And to get to the state, it takes time, years sometimes. So what we have completed is the entry resistant window coatings are along the front of the office. I don't know how much you guys know about that. But what it does is you can shoot through it and the bullets come through. You can hit it with a brick. You can hit it with anything and you can't actually get through the windows. There's a film that's put with a certain kind of glazing on the inside that holds the windows intact to where somebody can't just shoot it a couple times and step through the empty. We're kind of limited right now based on the type of windows that we have. But everything that we could install for right now is installed. We were hoping for the grant, or not the grant, but the bond to go through, in which case we were going to replace more windows, but we did everything we could at all the sites we can. What's coming up, the ceiling tiles and curtains have been replaced in the multipurpose room at Central to accent the new sound system and rear projecting audio-visual that was put in. So Central's looking very nice right now as far as a multipurpose room for the assemblies and stuff and the plays that are going on. This summer, we're going to widen Mesa Avenue right in front of the school in Wing 1. We're gonna move it out 7 to 10 feet. Because right now, since we don't have busing, the parents really get boxed in there during pickup and drop off time. So along with widening that road, we're going to include a sidewalk on the Wing 1 side to keep the kids hopefully on the sidewalk and the cars with the cars along. Also, we got the fertigation system installed. That's a way, it's an underground system to spread fertilizer, but more importantly, spread gopher repellent because the fields out between Central, Wyandotte, and SDO have a big gopher problem. So now we just put the chemical in there. It's basically castor oil. And we run it at night and it chases the gophers off to, I guess, neighborhoods down in the ditch. But we've actually had people break their ankles cutting across that field. And so we're trying to mitigate some of that.
So maybe this is for, what's the sport court construction gonna be for?
That
I
is,
see the picture.
it's a outside basketball area that covers 2.5 basketball courts. It will also have an outdoor basketball surface that helps cut down on injury, sprains, cuts. It's kind of a rubber tile surface.
Play other sports on it too.
Yes, wherever you want to have assemblies. Money for this came also from COVID. They said, figure out how to teach kids 6 feet apart. And we remember how long COVID was and took us long to get to the state. So it's actually.
We're also utilizing and correct me if I'm wrong, ELOP money, because it being covered, it mitigates, hot days or rainy days and gives us additional facilities for after school program. But also gives us another good PE option on rainy days or on very, very hot days, things like that.
And it'll be lit for nighttime use and more to come on that. The track got paved and it has the reflective asphalt coating on it, which it reflects the heat and it actually changes the temperature out on the asphalt anywhere from 10 to 13 degrees. And it's noticeable when you walk from
asphalt to treated asphalt. It's supposed to cut down on learning loss mitigation, bullying. And just better make you feel better. Ishii Hills, the sport court construction's going on at the same time as the studios. We have ongoing fire mitigation. One of the pictures you'll see there, the grounds guys just dropped 120-foot pine because it was leaning. And there, if you ever drive by, you'll notice that you can slowly see deeper into the forest because the fire mitigation is raising up the ladder fuel up to 8 feet, which is suggested by CAL FIRE. With that, we've implemented the goats. This will be the 3rd year that the goats come there. And we also got them to start going to Stanford last year for their nature area. Clear that area out once they get to there. Ishii Hills has a resistant window coatings. Just last year, we had it completely painted because it's 20 years old and it's starting to show it. The refurbished exercise area, that's where we took the exercise equipment that was dilapidated, not used, and pouring rubber flooring was in there, was all torn apart. So now we have a couple slabs and we have turf put in there and some pickleball courts. So now it's good to see the kids actually using it now. Other things that are coming up. Things that are pending, we have the admin building going in on the front lawn by the flagpole. So that will be able to free up space in the library since we've been using the library for an office for so many years. And that construction is going to begin in the spring, probably around April time. Stanford, we have a few more pieces of playground equipment to install. That should be starting next month. Completed the entry resistant window coatings. Some playground equipment's been installed. The parking lot, you see a picture of that. That was 2 summers ago. It was a complete rebuild. If you notice the pictures, they had to dig down about 4.5 feet to stabilize the parking lot because it's on a hill with the amount of water that comes through. What's coming up for Stanford is we had two trees in the kinder area that got eaten up by mistletoe. So they were diseased so bad we had to take them down. So to replace that, we're going to put in a shade that partially covers their play area and some of the equipment. But that's when it's everything else, other problems that's done. Low ropes course, we have the high ropes course, which is complete. And the low ropes course will be going in pretty soon. All the parts are built and ready to go in. Just have to wait for weather. And this summer, hopefully we'll have some playground asphalt replaced. Wyandotte, we have 2 shades that are about to begin going in on the playground. And 1 piece of playground equipment that we have on hand, we just have to get it installed. It also has the window coatings, the reflective asphalt coating. You see the picture of the playground, it's all colorful. We did a pilot program at Wyandotte to see if we could see any difference, get the teachers' opinions, and it turns out it really does work well. So the pilots were at the kinders, and that's now we'll move on to bigger play areas. This summer, I'd like to start working on the playground equipment replacement and possibly get Wyandotte's playground coated because asphalt's in such good shape. Over, we're working on getting a rear projector and sound system, not quite as awesome as the studios and what Vince has, but it's a smaller area and it's way due to be replaced. Our HVAC replacement's almost done. We have some playground equipment to finish installing. I think there's a picture of that. And the student pickup shade structure is going out so the kids don't have to stand in the rain or they're waiting to be picked up. And that's going to be, the installation starts on Thursday, not tomorrow, but it'll be. Currently working, so completed staff parking lot was replaced. One of the playgrounds is repaved this summer. Room 16 is a portable that got replaced. And I've been here 20 years now. And it's the first year that classroom is an active classroom. It's been condemned and sitting there all this time. So that was a great way to get a classroom back. Multipurpose room flooring has been replaced and ceiling tiles. And the reflective asphalt is done at the kinder, just like I said.
Jim, can I intervene for a second? That was important that we got that classroom back because currently Ophers is populated as it's ever been. It has 400, as of today, 461 students there, which is the most that I can remember it having. And just on that same note, in the last 2 weeks, we've had 17 new students. We've increased our enrollment by 17 students. So carry on.
Need a room.
461.
So what's pending is working with food services with kid funds to have the kitchen floor replaced and the walk-in freezer fridge replaced. Because they're just old and dilapidated and it's time to replace them. And then also resurfacing another playground through the summer, hopefully. Now we have 2 shades that are gonna start being installed after Ophir's done, so maybe another week, week and a half. Completed, the guys did a full repaint of that school this summer. Every inch, so it's all nice and fresh now. It also got the entry resistant coatings. 2 playgrounds, upper and lower, will both repaved this summer. Multipurpose room, curtains have been replaced with shades, and a sound system was installed there as well. What's coming this summer, hopefully, is a play equipment replacement, and hopefully playground reflective coating put on, so the kids are cool. Ongoing projects that happen every year are roof refurbishment, replacement. We do the repairs and stuff, but we're trying to get ahead of our roofs to where once you get a roof on there, a new roof on there, you've got 25 to 40 years. And so roofing is an investment, and that's why every summer I try to talk into spending the money to get the roofs done. So it's something we don't have to worry about. Issue fire mitigation, I talked about that. That's an ongoing thing to try to decrease the wildland fire there and give people more time to get out of issue. And then carpet replacement is going on every summer just because we have some 35-year-old carpet that's shredded and stained and can't be fixed. And that's just all maintenance, but that's what we do. You have any questions?
Any questions?
So, the things like the play equipment replacement, which is needed, those are just regular facilities, or do we have a special
That is also ELOT money.
ELOT money?
Yeah, so ELOT pays for, because it can pay for things like the after-school program can use. Pretty much anything that's outside is gonna be ELOT. So yeah, we've taken advantage of having those funds and have been focusing on upgrading our playgrounds, adding shade structures, those types of things that really upgrade our campuses.
I just want to say thank you for staying on top of these necessary things that need to be done to keep our children safe and in a safe environment for teaching. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Jim.
Thank you for the photos. It's nice to see them. Thanks.
Any questions? You guys have fun.
You don't want to stay, Jim?
No, I'm Vince. I'm not taking you with me either.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and go on to district data.
So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Laura Clark from the coordinator curriculum. I work with Ryan, Jen, and everybody. Our department, if you'll go back to the front page, our department put together a quick snapshot of our state test scores. So it's a kind of a quick overview. You could go to this website right here and you could look up any district in California, or you could look up our district and drill down even more if you wanted to see more specific scores. That's where you would go. And this is where I pulled most of the data from. So if you look at our district as a whole, so every school in our district, in language arts and math, what you're looking at is the big numbers in the middle are your students that met standards on the testing or exceeded. So it's the standard met or standard exceeded added together. And that's what they consider percent proficient in students. Okay, so here's our district. This is this year, 19.2% in math. We're proficient and 22.2% in language arts.
But the big celebration is this, when you look at last year's scores, these are 22-23 scores. And these are our last most current scores at 23-24. We raised our scores in both language arts and math as a district. So that is a huge celebration for us that we'll talk about a little bit later. We're gonna go over elementary schools first and show you the snapshot of their scores in Alpha or Oakdale. So in Oakdale, they also went up in both language arts and math. So significantly in language arts by 10%. That's a pretty significant jump, and about 3-4% in math. And what I did was when you drill a little bit deeper, I pulled out some of the highlights instead of, cutting out the slides and putting more slides on here, a little bit more time. I took some of the highlights, and the highlight for Oakdale is that Oakdale increased in both language arts and math, and their third graders were 20% proficient in both ELA and math. And that's a quarter of the kids. I think that's a big celebration too. So John's here. I asked him if he wanted to say, what do you think contributed to the increase of your scores?
We've done a lot of things, but I think one of the biggest things that we did 4 years ago, we received a grant, the early education block grant. Beth was a part of it, worked on it with me. One of the things that came out of that was it provided for pull-out intervention. So we had one pull-out intervention teacher already. And then this provided for another pull-out intervention teacher. So we were able to service students in kindergarten through third grade that were below grade level using SIPs, which is a remedial reading program. So these students that were below, they got intervention using SIPs from these two teachers. And then every classroom in first, second, and third also received a SIPs program to work with their students that are 1 year below grade level. And so I think what we're seeing here, a big part of it anyways, is a trickle up effect. So as those students are now getting into the testing grades, we're starting to see the results of those interventions in the early grades that we're continuing on with. We also started had a focus last year on the science of reading, which has been around for a long time, but we were really starting to focus on how students learn to read and really working on with the teachers best practices to use with students to improve their reading skills.
So our next school should be Ophir. Ophir, their highlights for Ophir, if you see they were close in their scores, but both went down. But their highlights, when you drill deeper down into their data, is their fourth and fifth graders. Their fifth graders were 40% proficient in language arts. Their fourth and fifth graders were 36% proficient in math, which was the highest for their school.
So I just wanted to highlight with that with our fourth and fifth graders and the 40%, that is getting pretty close to the state average. Okay, now what you won't see here is that our third grade group at Ophir had a very low year, which overall we had 2 grade levels that did really well because there's only 3 grade levels that are tested through the state testing, third, fourth, and fifth. Third grade struggled, and they're addressing that right now. But the fourth and fifth actually did really well, and so. It does look overall that, Ophir went down, but there's a lot of other significant data out there for us to look at, both in a positive sense, but also in a discouraging sense, like the third grade. And so this year, they're really focusing on helping that third grade group, kind of close that gap.
Stanford, go ahead.
Okay, so the third grade, that's fourth grade.
Yes.
And does the fourth grader over switch also? Fifth grade does block, right? Does fourth grade?
Just the fifth grade does the block. And what Beth is talking about is the fifth grade teachers in the past, they've done what's called a block. And so Mr. Seychow and Mrs. Maturino in the morning teaches reading, English, social studies. And Mr. Seychow teaches math and science. And then at lunchtime, they switch Mrs. Metrino continues to teach ELA and math or ELA and social studies to Mr. Seychow's class. And Mrs. Matt goes to Mrs. Seychow's class for math. And so they specialize kind of in those areas, and they're, in the past have always outperformed every fifth grade, group in the area.
Does Stanford do that also?
No,
No, it's just over.
just over.
And other schools have a choice to do that if they wish to.
If they wish
And
to,
tolerate
they absolutely can. A lot of it has to do with just your comfort level of working with that other teacher, and those two have worked together for, years and years. And also, like, Mr. Seychow has he's a specialty math teacher. He's one of the best math teachers I've ever seen. And so that's another reason why they do that.
At Stanford, their math scores went up by 2.92%. Their fourth graders were 28% proficient in language arts, and their fourth graders as well were 25% proficient in math.
Wyandotte. Yeah.
Wyandotte did very well. When talking to Kathy and Spencer and Troy, you can add in, she attributes this to implementing more writing strategies into classrooms. She also opened up all the universal tools for testing for kids at testing time. And what did you do? Anything else that she said? So when they take a test, the state test, the kids have access to, for instance, they can use a highlighter, or they can use a calculator, or they could underline sentences. She opened that up. If they're not open, then the kids couldn't use them. So she opened that up for every kid, which it is available for every kid. Shannon and I will be working on that to open it up for the whole district. So we're gonna, and districts can, or schools can also right now, if you take the CAS practice test, they're there. And teachers can teach your kids how to use them right now on the practice test. We've also purchased an extension, a Google extension called Text Help. It works with docs and PDFs and slides, to where when a teacher is doing an assignment in a classroom, the kids have access to those, they're called universal tools. And just in a simple assignment in class, they can be practicing with those universal tools. So we have purchased that for every school to start using once we get that.
Has all staff been trained in that or needed?
They will have some PD for it. We're just in the process of getting it now. Yeah, we're hoping that really helps the kids, because then at test time, they can start highlighting or doing anything that they felt could help them on the test, and they'll know how to do it.
It's a pretty user-friendly program. It doesn't take a lot of training. There's some
Third grade.
videos.
So Wyandotte is 3, 4, 5 still. And the highlights is that Wyandotte obviously significantly increased in both areas.
So they opened up the program and you said there's a calculator?
Yeah, they can
So
use a
third grade
calculator.
math, we're letting them use a calculator?
On the test, there's a calculator, but the test will designate which questions they can use and which they can't.
So for example, I anticipated that question. And so, there's some questions that kids can use calculators on, some of them they can't. And there's certain grade levels that have more emphasis, or less emphasis with the actual calculator. So in third grade, where some of the standards are more based in, adding, subtraction, multiplication, that is not as much of an ability to use that calculator. But what we attribute the scores to, one of the biggest things that they attribute the scores to, and now we are kind of adopting that district-wide, is the fact that in years past, there hasn't been as much emphasis on the writing, and the state's kind of redone kind of the writing platform. And what I mean by that is how they grade it and things like that. And what we figured out is that a lot of our kids were putting IDK, which means I don't know. Because on the state test, they give them these long passages to read. And then they have to do a writing prompt. And back when I was a teacher 20 years ago, and we did the state testing, we'd get these thick booklets. And as I would proctor a test, and if a kid put down IDK, we'd say, you need to go back and give it another try. Or here's a Jolly Rancher, suck on that until you want to, write a paragraph or two. Because everything is digital, you have to put something down. If they put IDK and then press submit, the teacher, and in that split second, the proctor's walking around the classroom, may or may not see that. And then the student's done, and you can't go back and check that work. So a lot of our kids, just out of the sheer fact that they were, test fatigue or didn't want to do it or whatever, they're getting zeros on the writing. And so you're gonna see a slide here pretty quick that shows that only 4 or 5% of our kids are proficient in writing. And we attribute a lot of that due to the fact that they're not even giving it a real attempt. And so we're putting a lot of emphasis not only helping them be better writers, but preparing them to give really ample attempts so they can show. But if you remember last year, we were in this room about the same time and we showed you these scores. And you said, that's not okay. And we took that message back to our principals. John, did we take that message back to our principals?
Yep.
How was that conversation?
Loud and clear.
Okay. So I think there's a lot of things that we attribute this to. But we expect to see with our writing focus and some of the other things that Troy's office is doing, is going to continue to see growth for this district.
I have a quick question. Do these tests affect their grades? How is that information delivered to the students? Do they know that?
The test scores or the grades?
The grades, do the student know that these tests don't affect their grades?
We get a letter with the happy little dials on it.
Parents do.
Yeah, the parents get the letter, the happy little dials on it, and then there's a score and a breakdown of the
But I
math.
think what's being asked is, do the children know ahead of time that this is not going to affect their grade?
There's also
Oh.
parent notification before the testing.
And the answer is yes,
Yeah.
they know that.
They know that it doesn't affect their grades.
Mhm.
How can we augment that? I mean, we don't, why do they know that? Because in ways, it might not affect their grade, but I think the kids can be delivered a message that, no, this is important. How do we bridge that?
So John and then Troy.
So one of the things, at least I do at my site, my staff is, they know it doesn't affect their grade, but we do let them know that it is important and it could affect when they go into middle school, what classes they go into in middle school, whether in remedial classes or higher classes. So it doesn't directly affect their grade, but it does affect them and it could affect them where they're going to be placed later on based off of those scores.
That's good.
And as a principal of many years, like Dr. Holtum and myself, testing is something that you do, it's a year-long process. And you get kids excited about it all year. One thing that we implemented last year is we brought back for students that had perfect attendance during testing. They would get a ticket for every day they came, then their ticket went into a drawing and we gave away bikes. So they would come to testing every day. We talk about how important it is to do well on the test, and we prepare them all year long. It's not just something we do for the month at the end of the year. We do it all year long, talk about testing, all of our intervention. Our students know the standards, what they need to know, and it's something we gear up for. And then, of course, we ramp it up to leading into testing, but it's something that it's built into our site, the way we run our sites, the way we work with our parents and our students. And that message is a year-long message. Absolutely.
The other piece that we do is teachers do meet with students and say, okay. Can't do it in third grade because they didn't test in second grade, but the fourth grader teachers meet and say, okay, this is what your score was in third grade. Let's see if we can get that improved for this year in fourth grade. So there is that competition too, so they can see the growth. They know that they're growing, and it's an opportunity for them to show the district and the state of California what they can do here at Oakdale.
Good, good. I bring that up because I know, like, if I caught wind of this when I was a kid and said, oh, it doesn't matter on your grade, okay. And I don't, it's a terrible message to give the kid, like, everything matters is my philosophy, and good.
Big celebrations, the third graders did very well. 45% were proficient in language arts. And it's a pretty high number, almost half of them. And 41 in math. So one and done did very well. Okay, let's look at our middle schools. I think I have Ishii first. So Ishii Hills, some of the highlights were their 8th graders. And it may have been tied to, like, okay, these counts for when you go to high school and what classes you're gonna be able to take. Are you gonna be in a remediation class, or do you get an extra elective? So I think that message was probably sent to Ishii Hills last year. Their 8th graders were 33% in language arts, and they were also 27% in math. The scores were real close, less than 1%, but down, we wish it would go the other way. And about 2 to 3% over arts.
Something to know, and you're gonna get a clearer picture on some of the middle school data. But our 7th and 8th graders, for the most part, and specifically our 8th graders, did very well in the state testing this year. But you're gonna see it both Ishii Hills and the studios where our scores kind of dropped. And that was because 6th grade was by far our most difficult performing, or lowest performing. And it wasn't it just studios, it was at Ishii as well. And we took a deep dive into that. Like, what is it with that 6th grade that happened? Was it the teaching? Was it the kids? We look at longitudinal, has this class always kind of been a little bit lower? And I don't know if we found all the answers, other than we're gonna, really work with them this year in 7th grade to try to buck that trend. But what we also found out again was, when I went into their writing scores, a lot of them, and I said earlier that they changed kind of the grading, and it used to be that if you put down IDK, you would get at least 1 point, okay? Because it was like on a 4 or 5 point rubric. And if you put anything down, you would get a point. Well, last year they changed it that if you didn't put anything down that was important or useful, you got a 0. And so, and I do know that kids, they say, hey, all I put down is IDK, and I was able to move on, and I won't have to put all that time and effort. And we're trying to stop that. But we found a lot of 0s in our data, and which very much adversely impacted these scores. And so we're trying not only to teach them how to be good writers, but asking them, trying to compel them, hey, just give us your best shot. And that's why using some of the universal tools will help them kind of do some of that work as well. It doesn't do the work for them, but it makes it, just like you and I, when we write papers, we can use different tools. We want to compel them to do that same thing.
One other thing that we're kind of doing a longitudinal study on, and is that our 6th grade is currently taught by self-contained teachers, multiple subject teachers. And that was kind of an agreement, I guess, that was established when the 6th grade moved up to the middle schools. And it's something that has just become kind of standard, just an accepted practice. So we're looking at the possibility of eventually in upcoming years, possibly making those actual single subject teachers as well, and absorbing 6th grade into a full a full middle school type schedule with single subject teachers all day long. So that's kind of another study we're in the process of doing to see if that would be able to provide a different program for our middle schools.
When they're taking the test and we get to that writing part, can they be told they have to have a teacher check before they're allowed to click onto the next part? Is that it gives testing? cycles?
Technically, we're not even supposed to look at the
Okay.
screen.
Wondered. I was never doing testing, having to wander around, but you're right, it was paper,
Yeah, things are
Yeah.
like.
so much easier.
At the middle schools, I did showed some cohort data, which means same group of kids each year. So this is last year's 8th graders. This is the year before the same kids as 7th graders. And this is the year before the same kids as 6th graders. And you could see they came in at 6th grade, they were 31% proficient, and they left 8th grade 33. But the big aha here is this. So down here at the bottom, this is the standards not met. They went from 54% in 7th grade of not met to 31%, which is great because those kids filtered up somewhere. So as teachers in a district, what we want to do is take those strands and see where those bubble kids are and get those kids up to the next strand. And hopefully it just bumps some up from one strand to the next. So when you dig deeper down into the data, you can see all that. But this is a big positive.
And ultimately, that's our goal, is right, we're sending really competent kids to high school. That's our ultimate goal.
So this is language art. In math, again, growth. Last year's 8th graders, this year's 7th graders, 6th graders. They came in as 6th graders 21 and they left 27. So there was growth there from 6th to 7th. This is just last year's 7th graders. Okay. So last year's 7th graders and as 6th graders. I don't have any highlights on there, but I did want to show you that the cohort of kids, the 7th grade kids. Same thing with 7th graders last year and their year as 6th graders and how they did. And these are just these two numbers added together to show proficiency.
Sorry.
7th grade math though, at Ishii Hills, again, this number, significant drop. So they have filtered up somewhere and now you can see it from 6th grade, 5% to 7th grade, they doubled.
So that's still not, that's not good scores, right? But we're identifying, areas and groups of kids that we need to, give extra support to and try to continue to develop. But, what she's showing is, hey, we're making progress.
Because we want this number low and we want this number high. Okay, we're at the studios, little bit of a drop in both. Some of the highlights, 7th grade, last year's 7th graders were 29% in language arts and they were 13% in math. Again, could be better, but the 7th graders were definitely stronger. Their cohort data, again, last year's 8th graders, them as 7th graders, same group of kid as 6th graders. This is a math. And then 7th graders, last year's 7th graders, them as 6th graders, very similar. No drop, really, no increase. Pretty close there as well in math. I'm gonna let Spencer take the next three because they're fun.
So I think tonight we've shown you a lot of areas of growth and some, overall the district, we've gone up, shown a lot of great levels and a lot of different schools that are doing some really good work. But I wanted to give you a snapshot because overall as a district, we went up almost a point in English language arts and almost, over 2 points in math. And the yellow signifies that it was an increase. Okay, and you're like, Spencer, that's not great. Well, let me tell you that the state as a whole, we are much better than the state as a whole for improvement. But I also want to show you how we compare to all of our neighboring districts. and how they did last year. And the blue signifies a drop. And so we're the only district in the area that improved in both ELA and math. Now, we still have a ton of work to do, but we're doing that work. And we're really proud of the fact that we're in this category. And I will share with you that as the authorizer for string charter, we did have Troy and I did have a meeting with them to discuss their significant drop last year. Although we don't, as you know, we don't have any real oversight, but we still have some oversight. And, you know, we want to make sure that they understood, you know, that we get these reports as their authorizer, and had that conversation. And it was Ellen Hamilton, who used to be a principal here, was the one representing the stream, and we have a good relationship with her, and it was a cordial conversation, but they were well aware of their significant drop.
I'm very surprised at the fact that ELA goes down, but math is going up. In the past years, it's been reversed.
Well, I think part of that is the fact that, you know, we're putting a lot of emphasis on both. And we anticipate a lot bigger growth in ELA next year because we're putting so much focus on the writing, which was a huge hole for us.
And the focus that we're doing on the writing in the classroom, is that by hand or is that keyboard?
Both.
Next slide.
Any questions about that slide?
That one got moved.
Oh, I went back.
You went backwards.
Oops, sorry.
You're regressing.
There we go.
I apologize.
So, we'll go through this kind of quickly because we spent a lot of time on this, but this is our dashboard. And this is what the community sees. This is what the state puts a lot of emphasis on. And the goal is to go from red to blue. And our goal is every year, move that arrow to the next color. And we've done that this year.
So the orange means that we're going backwards compared to the previous year, if my memory serves.
We want to go to the right.
Right.
Yeah.
The yellow is maintaining status quo, and then of course the blue and the green is improving over the previous year. Yeah.
No, not exactly.
Okay.
Red is staying the same or going backwards. Orange is showing small growth.
Okay.
Yellow is showing more growth. Green is showing, it's just different layers of growth. Anything above red is different layers of growth. And then, of course, all the way up to blue, which is the highest, which our ELs are, which is awesome. That's some.
So where is this found? And you know, so here's the problem I have with this. This is deceiving. I mean, because you're showing that our English learner progress is fantastic, man. We really hit it.
Mhm.
But then you go and you look at the numbers and still 65% of the children don't meet standards or barely met standards. So that means 44%. And just because we didn't do 42% this year, we did 44% this year, man, we're on it. And I still disagree. I mean, I don't really care what the top numbers are. I mean, to be honest, when I look at these numbers and I see that some of them have 80% of the children that are, you know, they have no, I mean, I hope they didn't do the math on this because it's probably not right. I mean, if this is the standard, I mean, I still don't see, I'm quite honestly, I don't mean to be negative and be a jerk. I don't see nothing to celebrate here. I mean, I see a lot of children that are just, they're pushed on to the next grade. And I understand that we're trying to make the district look good or whatever it is we're trying to do in this process. But these children are being pushed each year, you all know this, to the next grade. And then they come out the other side and they still don't know the basics. I mean, so you know, I'm sorry, I just don't see this as anything to celebrate. Not when I see, you know, and really putting the good numbers in here, we should put the children that are not proficient in here. That's what's important. I mean, not the You know, I don't know, heck, I can't see. I can read, but I can't see. 19% are, you know, okay, great. 81% are not. I mean, so what about the 81%? I mean, that's the part that I have a problem with, Spencer, that I struggle with every year. I'm gonna continue to struggle with because this is nothing to celebrate. I mean, and this might be everywhere, I don't know. I mean, but man, this is disheartening. I mean, if our children and everybody's children are this far behind the curve that they don't even meet the minimum standard. I mean, 81% of them are not, and a third grader to be using a calculator for anything, it's absurd. I mean, if they can't do it, I mean, giving them a tool just so they can cheat their way through it, I mean, that doesn't educate them. That just that handicaps them more than anything, in my opinion. But anyway, that's,
Yeah.
I know I can't change that, and me griping about it's not going to change it, and all of that. I just, I just really want to impress upon everyone. I think it's extremely important that we focus on what we're not doing and don't put stuff like this out. That's garbage. I mean, to tell me that, hey, look at that, boy, we really hit it on the last slide on the right side. That to me, that borders on just telling a lie.
So that's the state, that's what the state publishes.
That may be, but it's still garbage.
So we had a similar conversation last year, right? And our scores in a lot of ways were similar. We have made increases in a lot of places. I'm going to share a couple things that I think are important when it comes to standardized testing. We're basing a lot of this data off a 2-week window of a state test that's done online. Okay. I know that we have kids that underperform on that test because they don't give a crud about the test. And I can tell you that's why I talk so much about the writing piece, because we have a lot of low scores in the writing piece because kids didn't even attempt it, right? So when it comes out in data, it shows that, hey, these kids, they can't write. In some cases, it might be right, but in a lot of cases, they can write. And it may not be at the level that we want them to be, but they can. I also believe that there's a lot of other ways to judge kids on their ability to read, do math, and things of that nature that are important to be successful in life that aren't tested. For example, reading fluency. That's why I'm always checking that reading fluency, because I need kids that when they go to high school, they can actually read. Okay.
But can they comprehend what they're reading, Spencer? Or are they just reading regurgitated words?
Well, but that's the first step, because if they can't decode the words, then they'll never have a chance. But I need them to be able to read fluency so they have a chance to be able to comprehend.
But what do we do to empower our teachers and principals? I mean, so that, because I know that that's what's upsetting about this to me, is that I know this cannot be accurate. There is just no way
Right. Is there a way?
that this can be accurate. I mean, and it reflects negatively, I think, upon everybody because of the inaccuracy of it. I mean,
Is there a
and just-
way that we could look at it?
But what do we do we lobby somebody? Do
See
we
a more
hire
accurate
a state lobbyist or something to lobby whoever comes up with these rules and stuff so that those things get changed so that they can look at it before they push the submit button to ensure that there is something there and not just IDK? Now, IDK is funny, I mean, but it really, kind of puts us in a position here and it misrepresents it, because I don't believe, I just don't believe that at the studios that 9.3% of this, only 9.3% of the students are proficient at doing math. I mean, I just don't believe that. I mean, it just can't be. I mean, that's just, so what do we do to, I mean, I appreciate the change. I mean, but what do we do to ensure that, the product that we're getting is a good product? And I mean that in the education that the children are receiving, because I'm confident that it is. But how do we verify that and put that out when we're dealing with stuff like this? What tools do they need? I mean, or how do we change the way things are? Or is this one of those things where I'm just spitting in the wind and, you know, I'm just gonna get wet?
Well, because a lot of stuff is, it seems like, you know, the kids are just putting whatever they want. And so that's what's showing that, you know, these scores are just, it's not really monitoring them like, you know, back in the day, we used to have a book. You know, you sit there and you do every bubble and everything like that, but these kids just seem to just, because I guess they know that it's not
To
important.
not say that some kids didn't just go through and do whatever
Yeah.
bubbles in the shape of a dinosaur.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just like, I mean, we really want to see like true results from true kids.
Is there a way, are the report cards more accurate?
So I think that's a loaded question too, because in some cases, I think absolutely. And then there's,
Than this?
then there's other things that say no. And let me give you an example. We have some smart kids in this district that are super smart, but don't do a lot of their work, right? So if they're not doing their work, or they're absent, and we do have a lot of absenteeism in this district, they're not gonna have good grades, because they're just not here enough to be able to get the points, you know, the classroom points and doing all their assignments and things like that. And so smart kids may be getting Cs and Ds. I know a lot of smart kids in this district that are getting Cs and Ds because they just want to get by. They're not interested in putting in the work, even though they have the cognitive ability. And so that's why as educators, and my principals here will tell you that, and Beth on our board now, who's, you know, taught for years and years, including some of these testing grades, that there's a lot of ways to tell if a kid is capable and is smart and has, you know, learning potential. Now, I would say, yeah, some of these, I hate this stuff. You know why? Because it's one thing, but this is how the state judges us. This is how, in some cases, the community judges us. And that's why I'm trying to give you a lot of different looks. Okay, because like the 8th grade, it's not 80% that I'm sending on that, you know, I only have 33% that are proficient, but that's a lot better than, you know, the 10% that, you know, the other overall score look like. Like we're sending smarter kids to high school than what some of our scores say. But in some cases, it is also showing that we have a lot of freaking work to do.
You know what I'd like to see, Spencer, is at the end of the year, I'd like to see some sort of a report that comes from our principals to you and then is synthesized down to how many kids, you know, that were in the 8th grade received an average of a C. What is the percentage of that? Because I would be more satisfied with what my teachers tell me as opposed to what this tells me. I mean, because they're there every day. They know what's going on with the child and they're gonna have, you know, and I think it's gonna better reflect what their work is too. I mean, if they said, just what is the average, A, B, and C? I mean, I don't even know individual child or nothing, but to me, I think, and then I think that's something that we should share, that the average child or this, you know, this percentage of children in this district, you know, averaged at a 70% or better grade rating. You know, something like that, because, you know, we gotta combat this, because this is terrible. I mean, that's just, and maybe if I went to another school district, it would look the same. I mean, you know.
It just depends on the school district. And I said to her, this was always a thing of frustration. And then the teachers would have to go through and we'd look at every child and we tried to figure out where it was low. And then we'd plan our lessons, trying to get it better. And then they wouldn't score any better.
Yeah, because they're not taking it serious. They're
And
just
it was
IDK.
always been very frustrating for years.
Or is it
Not for
IDK or
33
IDC?
years. So just for a long.
I don't know, or I don't.
And very frustrating, because just to add to that is, as a teacher, as an administrator for the last 12 years, like you see these report cards come through, these kids have straight A's. They're doing great, right?
Yeah.
But on a test, they're like not meeting standards. And it's like, how is that happening and where's that?
I mean, if they're
So,
meeting
and that's
the
at every
standard,
district.
it's when you're teaching at your classroom and you're giving them the wonder stuff, that's the standard. That's the California, you know, this is past the California standard.
And then you're using test
And
scores
you
for
do.
intervention classes,
Yeah.
and then the parents are saying, but my kid got an A. and math. How come you're paying my intervention?
Well,
This test scores there. Yeah.
It's always been a source of frustration.
It is a cycle.
But this is what it is the problem, and this is how everybody looks at you. Cause I've worked at schools where you just never seem to get up, no matter how hard everyone worked, and I knew everyone was doing a great job, the kids were trying so hard.
Maybe we need to tell our story harder. I mean, and do the averaging of what, you know, this amount of children are, you know, C students are better, this amount of B students are better. I mean, just, and then
Well,
just public information, just hammer it with that out there about, hey, this is what is you know, if there's issues with this testing, this is what it actually is.
so I wrote down, you know, report card breakdown, and that's something that we can do through our software, you know, kind of break down, you know, what the grades are and give you a report, and I'll write that down, and come graduation time, you know, I can share that information with you. We do have other means of assessment for kids that aren't just, you know, standardized stuff. And, you know, some of it I shared with you earlier was the, you know, the fluency, because that is a big indicator for me as when I was a teacher. If I could get kids reading, the comprehension will come. But I have to get them reading first, because if I never get them reading first, then the comprehension never has a chance to come. You know, other things like that, so that I can ensure, we as a district can ensure, I have to ensure that kids going on to high school can read a biology book. Okay, because if they can't, they have no chance of getting out of high school. But if they can read, they have a chance.
But you want that to start low, because we want those grades, as you get that third grader that's gonna finally take that test, you want second grade to be prepared for that. You want, when we send them to the middle school, that they're prepared, because I hear a lot of it's not, you know, like drop. And some of it is the switch, like from third to fourth grade is a big jump in textbooks and different, you know, things get handled, there's always that kind of jump. But until it's gotta start. Cause it's always frustrating for me when I would send all my kindergarten kids on and they met all the standards and knew everything, and then all of a sudden find out they weren't doing well the following year and the next year. It's like, well, what happened in between?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, one of the things too, Bill, is that our job as educators in California is to teach the standards, as you were. One of our focuses since I've been here is we've reinstituted PLCs, we're starting that as well. We're having our teachers review standards and also look at the different types of ways that they're teaching. Depth of knowledge is a term that used as far as like a teacher can teach a standard 4 different levels. An easy level, just base level, and then it gets steadily harder as they instruct. Most of the state testing that's done is done at depth of knowledge 3 and 4, which is the highest levels that they teach. So what we've done in our PLCs is professional learning community.
Okay.
We meet an average of 2 times a month and review student data. We've also instituted what's called the Inspect Benchmark, which is given 3 times a year. And the Inspect Benchmark mirrors what standards they're going to be tested on. So what it is the way questions are presented, the way standards are being taught is discussed and taught earlier and all year now, which is something that wasn't done before. And so as far as what we're doing is, this is the sandbox we play in, because this is what we're required by the state to do. So what we're trying to do in there is expose the students to everything they're going to need to have the best opportunity to be successful during those 2 weeks. And also master the standards that they're required to in their grade level. It's not all about test, it's also about getting them mastered in their standards for when they leave 3rd grade going to 4th grade. But that can also be included in the part of test prep and being exposed to what they're going to be questioned at the end of the year. We refine those. We take those assessments, we review the data, they go back and design interventions for 8 weeks. Then they go and take the test again. We just opened up the second window of our benchmark. So we're gonna have the second time the students take it. We're gonna have this data in a couple weeks, review it, have them take that back and review which standards we need to go over. And then we'll do one more test before 8 weeks before we take the test at the end of the year, which will give the teacher even more data to use in helping those students master the standards and be that much more prepared. So I want you to know that the state gives us the sandbox to play in, and we're trying to refine it the most way possible. And I hope you do understand that we always talk about the 80% that are not proficient. That is our goal every day, and that's what we do. And that's what all of these PLC meetings are doing, is how can we get that 80% up to where they need to be, and how they can demonstrate to us, the state, to that part. That's everything that we do in our educational PLCs, in our ed services, and our curriculum and instruction. That is our focus constantly. It's never forgotten. I just want to make sure you know that, because I feel as passionate as you are about this. That's why we do what we do.
I don't believe that 80% of them are not proficient. I just don't believe the numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, in order for the 80% of the children to not be proficient, and I'm just looking at the one that's here in front of me, Ken. You know, whatever it is, there would have to be some sort of corruption and conspiracy going on in this district. And I'm not, and anybody listening, I'm not trying to put out a theory, I'm just saying that there would have to be to have that kind of a failure. I mean, that's just, I mean, there would have to be a concerted effort of everybody here to say, you know what? We're gonna make sure they're not proficient. I mean, we're gonna teach the wrong things, or we're gonna teach the wrong ways, and you know, we hate kids and we don't wanna work, you know. I don't believe any of that. You know, what upsets me every single time is this, I'm sorry, but stupid testing that we get back that comes in, and it makes the district look terrible. I mean, because it's like, this is, you know, and I know that just can't be, because I don't believe that any teacher in any classroom, any principal is gonna sit there with these kids that they've taken and invested their time and self into for a full year, and gonna go, you know, I'm just not gonna do nothing with them, but I'm gonna pass them just for the heck of passing. I mean, I believe that they probably establish those relationships and they care about those kids and they want them to be successful. I mean, so, you know, there has to just be some better metric for this other than this. I mean, because this just, every year, this just infuriates me when I read it, because it, you know, the way it comes off is like, oh, well, hey, we're doing great. 11% of our kids can do math. Well, heck, I think you're doing horrible. 88% can't. I mean, so, see, I can't even, because 11 and 88. See, here, so you need people that understand that that is 89, not 11. So anyway, but that's just, you know, I mean, you know, I think our teachers, our principals, our administrators, I think everybody are good people, and they're doing they're doing a very good job. I just think this is a horrible reflection of what actually is happening. And I would like to see some sort of pushback to say, this is BS. This is not what's going on here. Because, you know, we talk about declining numbers and things like that. And if this is what I look at, well, heck no, I'm not sending my kid there. I mean, that's just, you know, they're terrible. I mean, I'm gonna go to the place that, you know, they might be clicked up, you know, 15% as opposed to 11, but hey, at least that's 4 more percent. I mean, so we have to have some way of pushing back against this. I mean, we can't stop it. We can't undo it. It's a state thing. I understand they have their rules and things like that, but we gotta do something on our side to say, look, you know, this is how, you know, we see our children. This is what our teachers see our children. I mean, so that's, you know, and next year, please remind me about all this before we get into this, so I don't have to go through this whole diatribe again.
Vince?
You are on record.
Yeah, so Member Legrand, good points, but I do want to say that we are doing something. And in my analysis of 6th grade math and working with John Peterson, who's a consultant to the Duke County Office of Education, we've dived into math first. And I say that as an example to align with what you're saying, because our teachers are using the district's adopted curriculum. Math, for example, CPM. And what I've done is I've aligned, through the work with the 6th grade, 7th grade, I've aligned the CPM with the California Tested Blueprints, found out there are 31 heavily tested standards in 6th grade, and there are 24 in 7th grade for claim 1. Claim 2, 3, and 4 are as accurate to what our assistant superintendent, Mr. Cox, is saying, that they test the mathematical practices, and they're not testing the Common Core State standards, which are found in claim number 1. So claims 2, 3, and 4 are heavily targeting on the depth of knowledge, DOK levels 2, 3, and 4. Meaning you can't just recall what the teacher taught you. You now have to apply. You now got to synthesize and analyze and put it on paper. So what I'm saying to you is our adopted curriculum, number 1, is overdue for adoption. Number 2 is these standards that are heavily focused on the test. They're not in every single lesson that the teachers are teaching. So if you open the book and you start off with chapter 1, lesson 1, it's not gonna align to what the standards are calling for you to test. So in my, again, work with this, it would be, you start off with chapter 4, lesson 4.1.2. And then you go to lesson 4.1.3, 4.1, and then you go to chapter 7. And in, for example, the 7th grade one, there is no calling for chapter 1. But teachers are starting off with chapter 1, with lesson 1.1.1, 1.1.2. And so we're spending a lot of our teaching time on things that are not tested. So you're right, to your point, that it is not accurate because we're teaching apples and we're testing oranges is what I'm trying to say. So to your point, we are doing that. As a district, we're starting that with PLCs, according to what Mr. Cox is saying over there across the whole schools and across the district. But we're not quite there yet, and the alignment needs to happen. And what we're struggling here with is time for that to happen. Meaning our teachers are there 8 to 2:30, 3:10, and then they leave. When in the 6th grade, for example, do they have time to prep, to even think, to lesson plan, all of that? And so I think in a way, our teachers just show up and they teach what they're given to teach. And then we build in the PLC time for them to go and look at the data and try to plan, but that's not enough. That's not enough because we haven't really done in-depth digging into what do the kids know, what do the kids do not know, what do we need to do in order to remedy, what other additional resources and materials do we need to support their learning over here? Because right now we're doing the teachers are doing the job, meaning they're using the district's adopted curriculum. But if they're just applying it the way that I just explained, it's not gonna hit the target. We're gonna miss for the most part.
So with that being said, we appreciate the feedback. We want the feedback. But in closing here, we have some areas that of improvement and our next steps. I'm not going to go into a lot of depth there. You can read about that. But I also want to highlight the fact that the state of California has always focused on students that are at or above grade level when they do their data. Okay, I think it's important for us to note that if you look at our data, we have a big chunk of kids that are at standards nearly met, meaning they're really close there. And those are some of the kids we're trying to target with what Vince is sharing. And through a lot of the other things that we're working on. But we also know that we still have a ton of work to do. And I do want to also impress upon the board that in this district, we have 24% of our kids right now that are in special education. And so that's 24 out of 100 kids who have an IEP and there's a reason why they have that IEP. And most of those kids are never going to be, our high achievers. And there's a reason why they're in special education. And we're giving those kids as much support and intervention as we possibly can. But that percentage is a lot higher than some of our neighboring districts. And about 10% higher than the state average. And I'm not saying that to say, oh, woe is us. I'm just saying tonight we're talking about the data, and that's something that we all have to consider. But we are working really hard because, yeah, when I share this data with you, it's not great data. I'm not, putting up billboards saying, hey, this is fantastic, but I'm sharing with you that, dang it, we're working hard and we are improving and we're getting better. And last year, Bill, when you said Wyandotte, what the heck is going on? Well, Wyandotte, we lit a fire there and they did phenomenal work. And we want to do that and replicate that everywhere. Oakdale had a great year, but it's not enough. 27% proficiency is not enough. And there are a lot of other ways to look at it, to say, no, this kid is capable of more, or this kid's smarter than what his test scores reflect. But we are gonna continue to put our best foot forward to improve this data. But I also want to point out that one slide about the neighboring districts is I want to point out that we're moving in the right direction. And it's hard to move in the right direction with the testing format. Because you saw, we're the only ones in the area in ELA that went forward. These are hard tests. This is hard stuff.
Are IEP students also taking this test?
Absolutely, they're required to.
And they're disaggregated the same way the EL students are, and as far as that's why every one of them have their own color based on what they are. They're either EL, foster, homeless, special ed, and then by their ethnicities, African American, white, Asian, all of those. So that's how they break all of them out. And EL was just one color that was in there as well that happened to show a lot of growth. But that's because the state pulls it out by those individual groups and then makes colors specifically for them. That's not us. That's the way the state reports the dashboard. So the ELs is the disaggregated. We can't make that one our own. That's what the state published.
Any other questions? Do you have any other slides to show? Okay.
That's it.
One question I have is, when it says down here, OCESD has an extension called text help. Is that literally texting somebody?
No, it's on Google when they're actually in their Google Docs and they're creating when they're writing, they have tools that will help them highlight text to speech, all the things that are allowed on the state test. It's a way that the students can incorporate it into their daily work, so it's not a new thing when they test. That's what it is. It's training them how to do those tools. But that's the thing. I wrote the PO, the text help. You're absolutely right, but it's not. Yes.
Yeah, and please don't misunderstand my comment. I think our teachers and everyone do an incredibly good job. I just don't think this fairly reflects what's actually going on. And every year it's frustrating. This is what we put out and we tell everybody, look what we did. And it's like, wow, that's, just as an average person, that's tough looking at it. But when, you sit here and you know what's going on and you see the dedication that our teachers and principals and administrators have to these kids, this is not even close to what is out there. I just think we have to do a better job of telling our story because they're trashing us. And it makes me angry that, they're just allowed to come up with their ridiculous way that they go about things and come up with these ridiculous stories or profile to the district. We'd have to live in a complete community of blithering idiots if this was correct. This is, I've been here, I think now for 10 or 12 years, and I'm sure I would have ran into some of them by now. If they were all this dumb, because this just is not right. And that's not the product that's coming out of our schools. So anyway.
I'm sorry. Would maybe grade point averages on the middle school things, would that be a way to kind of share like our students average?
I think what member Ladrone asked about report cards, I started doing that because you have to look as a principal, you gotta look at multiple sources of data. And so I started compiling that and looking at that. Of course, the grade that the teachers give would be a lot higher than the standardized assessment scores that come back. And I did that for first semester. And of course, that proves that point.
What did our kids, what did you see?
Did you find?
Well, the majority of them is at like what you said. C average. So between C, B, in that range, they're not like way down there. Okay, so when we're looking at the report card grade level and we're using that, then yeah, it does seem like our majority of kids are doing what the teachers are doing. If we're using C as the benchmark of, yeah, passing. Yeah, so
I think we should tell that story. Because I think you guys all do are doing a very good job. I mean, it's, but this just trashes us every year.
yeah, I do want to say something too, if I can, regarding these standardized assessments. And so this has been challenged by different groups of people regarding how the assessment is written. And so whether it be the Black African American group, whether it be the English learners, it have been challenged. And because of the test being biased, so to this point right now, the testing itself, what I'm trying to say is, has gotten a lot better because the previous years, so starting in the 80s and 90s, the test was being questioned, whether or not it was legitimate. And so right now it is as best as it can. They're using depth and knowledge levels, higher levels of thinking. So they're trying to gauge appropriateness, but what I'm resorting to is, yes, they are testing our kids. Our kids are not dumb. Our kids are smart in their own way. It's just that the test is just rigid and one way testing the kids. And so the test is not allowing for us to go ahead and test the kids how they learn or how they test tests. It's the other way around. Kids, you gotta test the way that this test is set up. So however it is that you learn and your different learning modalities, you gotta test over here in a different particular way put out by the state. And so then, yes, a lot of the kids are not going to do well because that's not how, one, they're being tested inside the classroom. So like, for example, application of a standard. Application of a standard, meaning in real life and contextually, at the store, the supermarket. If we're talking about, you know, whether it be consumers, producers, or use of money and learning about money, well, it's not applicable in real life situation. So when they go into testing, then it doesn't apply and it's not realistic. They have to make sure that they support their answers and whatnot according to a fixed way of accepting the answers. And so, again, to your point, you're accurate, you're right on. But the test itself, instrument, has been revised again and again and again. And so far, it's at the best level that the state has put out there. And it's not just according to our state, California, their Common Core state standards are like standardized 47 states in America, 47. Don't quote me on that, but about 47 some states are using the Common Core state standards in some form of an SBAC or in our state, the CASP assessment, Smart and Balanced. But it would probably be a good idea to study what other states, and maybe whatever other countries are doing that moves their kids along, because ultimately we want our kids to be able to compete against any other state or any other country. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Appreciate it.
John, just real quick to confirm, I haven't pulled grades through our program, but every trimester we do honor students that meet the honor roll. So I'm able to get a gauge of how well our students are doing by the number of students that are getting A and B honor roll. And I can tell you, this last time, the first trimester, one of my fourth grade classes had all but 2 students that were honored on the honor roll. And so that's just another way that we can tell our story, is look at all these students that are earning these A's and B's on their report cards and getting on these honor rolls.
Can you share that on your website?
What's that?
Can you put that on your website?
Yeah, definitely can. And that's what I was gonna say, is there used to be a time when the papers would publish that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
So there's a lot of factors, right? I mean, that's a perfect example of us not always telling our story, right? And, you know, I'm always encouraging our principals to tell that story, right? Hey, look at this class, you know, 22 out of 24 kids got honor roll. Now, if you were to test them, you know, 25% or 30% of those kids probably are gonna score proficient, you know, based on his data. Score proficient, probably another 30% are gonna be close, and then the last 40 are gonna be, you know, standards not met. And our scores are gonna continue to kind of reflect what we see. But we're gonna continue to try to break that down. But I will come back with a more comprehensive analysis of our overall data. And in my mind, I have some pieces that I think, you know, report card is an obvious one. But there's gotta be some other pieces of data points that give you a better sense of where our kids are at. You know, for either the good or the bad, because you gotta understand, you know, the good and the bad. So if we don't have any other questions, we'll move on to our next thing.
I think it's important, Dr. Fulton, that we know the good and the bad, because then we know where to apply the pressure that needs to be changed. I mean, so, and empower our teachers, hey, this is the. You know, I really believe every one of them knows what is bad. I mean, and you know, and I don't mean by us leaning on them, I mean applying our resources to those areas so they can affect them. I mean, so that's not. You know, this is just, you know, this just doesn't fairly represent what's. I believe. I mean, that's just, you know, I would like to see some sort of a public information thing saying, you know, Orville, you know, come to Orville City Elementary School District where, you know, 92% of the children are, you know, C students or better. I mean, so, you know, or something to that effect. Of course, I'm not an advertising person, but, you know, I think that's a much more effective story than this. I mean, this is just frustrating to me. It has to be frustrating to people too, that it's, you know, I mean, they probably take it personal. I mean, that's just.
Well, truthfully, we do take it personally, right? And testing time is one of the most.
But you're never gonna get an accurate test if they're, you know, from what you're describing to me now, they can write anything they want and it don't matter. I mean, and they're kids. I mean, so they're gonna be kids. I mean, so you're gonna get all sorts of ridiculous.
But we're trying to change that so that then we don't get that, you know, we're always trying to get a bit more accurate account of what our kids can do and what they can't do. And so I literally, and I don't want to beat this horse to death, but I literally went to one of the middle schools and I heard 6th graders talk about how they're circumventing certain aspects of the test. Because it's a long test and it's a ton of reading. It's just a ton of reading. And some of that reading sucks for 6th graders, you know, they love to read their 15-second TikToks, you know, and then move on. And I'm asking them to read, you know, 15 minutes and then analyze and write for another 45. And they say, or they can go IDK and move on. And then, you know, veg out for the next 45 minutes, right? And we don't have a whole lot of things. So we got to kind of prep them for that. And like was shared, we can't even proctor that very well. And so we've got to prepare them. And that's where it comes back to, well, this is what gets published and it makes us look like morons, right? Because that, but I will promise you that other districts are facing the same kind of issue. And that's why they're not moving, you know, but they do have better scores than us. I will tell you that our neighboring districts, for a lot of different factors, and we have got to change that. And that's where some of our name and some of our kids go. is because we're not as high as them. Now, our neighboring districts that share our kids with us aren't much higher than us. Okay, and in some cases, we're higher than them. But we've got, based on the location of some of our schools, we have got to so outperform them for people to take notice. And that's my continuing goal, and to have programs like this that give our parents other opportunities, because of a lot of our parents are no longer interested in sending their kids to public school, not because we don't have good people, it's because of what's going on in our society. So if we don't have anything else, I'd like to move on.
I'm gonna go ahead and go on to virtual academies.
Okay, so this was discussed kind of in preparation for today's meeting. So ultimately, we've had contacts from community members, from board members, from people outside of the community, as far as, do we offer online programs? In our community, we compete with a couple different areas. There's a couple different charters in the area, Ipcani, which is one of our charters under our district, as well as some alternative programs at the county. There's also K-12, which is a statewide program, California Virtual Academies as well. Insight California, Inspire Charter Schools. All of these programs are basically anywhere in the state. People can sign up for these programs as a school of choice. So we're looking at offering a program to combat that. We do currently have an alternative independent study program called the IFLC, which serves, we have about 2.5 teachers right now serving that program. And we're looking at creating our own school and a program that will service up to about 160 kids, starting with 4 teachers.
So I'm gonna interrupt you for a second. So currently we have 4 teachers in our independent study program, 3 that are full-time and 2 retired teachers that kind of help us as when we have an influx of students. But before you go on to this particular slide, I want to share something really quickly. You know, after COVID, I heard a lot of requests for virtual, because there were some families that, you know, really got used to that and really liked it. And I looked into it, and I tried to beef up our independent study program, but I didn't hear as much interest as I thought. And so I kind of put it on the back burner. But then I had a conversation very recent with Daryl. And Daryl, I want you to share with the board, kind of in your profession, you know, why, you know, what the genesis of our conversation came from, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, I deal with a good portion of my clients, almost, I could go as far as half, do homeschool. When I realized I was gonna run for the school board, I started just asking everybody that I was working with that I knew homeschooled, like, why? Why do you homeschool? I wanted to find the common denominators. Like I said, the biggest one was vaccinations. They don't, you know, we have a lot of religious organizations in there. I'd say a good bit of the homeschoolers are like Christian. So that's something for them. There was a bit amongst that group, they wanted freedom of their religious instruction in their curriculum. And then the next one was the culture and the social issues that come up in going to public school. So those were like the biggest insights. And, you know, that's I think why I brought it up to you. I was trying to find what is the common denominators? Why don't these people go to public school?
So, and then the other thing is, kind of share with the board where these kids are going to school at, what online programs and where they're located.
Yeah, so for what I understand in Butte County, there's a few of them. I mean, our biggest group that we, because we're subcontractors for these schools, are
Sequoia Grove Charter School. They have 3 branches. 2 of them we deal with. One of them is Feather Falls, which deals with kind of some of the foothills. And then there's Lakeview Charter, which deals with the more local city-oriented kids. There's another one, South Sutter. These aren't really locational based, which is interesting. I think that some of the students, there is a push, and I know for some of the parents that I've talked to, just trying to get into any program they can because the waiting list is so high in some of these. So, you know, I found like you got to be on it quick. But one parent, and I'm pretty sure it's Sequoia Grove, said there was a 200+ wait list to get on these, you know, to get their kids on there. You know, there is an element of being able to add value or add extracurricular activities with certain vendors. I think the physical education is a big part of it as well. I know something like I can speak. I was a homeschool parent, and I knew that the physical education that I hold standard for my child, with like the public schools are going to do that. You know, and that's that I see with a lot of my parents too. They want a little higher level physical education.
So if they attend it, so then they can, the school is in, the virtual school is in paying you to take their child for physical education.
They could do that. Like you're going to get more diversity in the physical education. You're going to get maybe a martial arts schools. You're going to get gymnastic programs, you know, the football program,
Maybe
wrestling
shoes,
programs.
or
Yeah, there's a
like
ton.
list.
There's a ton of things that you could do, and I would say any of the, you know, on top of like traditional sports, baseball, basketball, and things like that. And you know, so there's a lot more options for the physical activity for things like that too. That maybe
And the school district is responsible to pay for that.
correct.
It sends up for.
Correct. And I mean, music is a big one, artistic things, you know, there's a lot of ways. So it gives the parents a little bit more, I mean, you might have 100 parents in a school, but they're going to all be able to, they're going to have many options on how they want to run their kids' curriculum in that sense. There is also an opportunity for the parents to choose a more diverse curriculum for their kids. That seemed to be more frustrating, and that's one of the things I brought up. I thought if we had you could make it easier for the parents to understand how to deliver the curriculum, because a lot of parents that want to switch from traditional schooling into homeschooling, they worry about that. What am I going to teach? How am I going to teach my kid? I'm not a teacher, you know, and so that's something that I would just say, hey, we could improve on that. Like give them a good curriculum and explain, hey, this is how you're going to oversee your kid and what you can do, what you don't have to do. This is what we'll take on. Yeah.
So I'm gonna thank you for sharing that, because I wanted to kind of set the table for Troy to go through kind of the proposal that we're talking about, and then maybe address some of those questions. So Troy, if you'll continue.
So, what you were mentioning was, there's a couple different programs that you're mentioning there. One of them is a homeschool program.
Mhm.
So what we're looking at doing is offering an online virtual. So basically, we would provide all curriculum. We are currently looking at a couple different vendors. One of the vendors we're looking at would provide all academic courses online that are CDE approved, that come through adopted curriculum through the state, that are approved and regularly being used in other programs as well. So that would take that part out of it for the parents. They wouldn't need to have to worry about the curriculum because it would be provided online. One of the situations with a school like this is we can offer dual enrollment, which means they can be on a program, and if they want to go to an outside vendor for anything, you know, football, baseball, any of those athletic events, there are some different stipulations we would have to meet, but that's absolutely possible. Students can be dual enrolled and do that, absolutely.
Can we back up 1 second? How
Yeah.
much screen time would we be looking at for that?
For most of
curriculum to be
the
online.
virtual, the way that we get schools approved and through the CDE, through the California Department of Ed, and get them identified, is we have to follow basic requirements, which means they need to be getting the same schooling they would when they're during the day. So it's more individualized. You can have a student that can take 2 hours on a lesson, you have a student that can do the same lesson in 15 minutes.
Got it.
So it's basically they have to meet the same requirements. How they get there is based on what the student's progress is, because it's all the same delivery and required work. It's how well they can do it.
Excellent.
And sometimes, and that's the hard thing about online education. I don't want to get too far into it, but with online education, you're gonna have students that can read and do the work and don't need hardly any guidance. They're those kids. And then you're gonna have those kids that are not successful online because they need coaching constantly, like literally someone there all the time. That's why when we're looking at these models, we're looking at having drop-in office hours. So when a student is stuck, they can come and see the teacher, sign up for a time, either do a virtual meeting. They have to have virtual check-ins. That's part of the state requirements. So they will have the check-ins, but we're gonna have those times where and then kids will kind of, if they're not progressing and they're not doing well, we're gonna have mandated times where they check in, but all of that. The whole deal is how the student is progressing, and the whole point is we have to have the students progressing and doing well. And that's where the teachers and the relationships set up with them and whatever their caseload is, those are the kids they're focusing on, so it's like the kids in their class.
I do know some of the people that will use the extra funds for tutors, private tutors too, to add to that. But.
Yeah, so it's all.
Families are given funds? Or-
There are funds available, just like, at any school, like with ELOP and different things. There are different funds that are available based on what your district is and what your program and your CDS code. Those are things that Andrew could probably answer better at a later time once we get to that point. But yeah, there will be funds set aside just like before and after school, because this will be a school that'll have its own code. So it will have its own set of funding, just like the other schools do.
What did you mean by vendors provide all the academic?
So Edmentum, who we use right now, that currently offers alternative curriculum for our kids. It's our intervention coaches at the middle school use it. Ishi uses it primarily as far as the middle schools. And what it does is that as a vendor, they have all of the third grade curriculum online. So a third grader could start day one and they work through all the lessons to complete third grade online. So it would be all, instead of having, that would be the ELA curriculum. It's standards based and it follows what they're required. They have that for ELA, for math, for social studies and
So you
science.
need a teacher then to oversee
The
it, or-
teacher would be multiple subject, overseeing all of them, just like any of our teachers.
Now
in the
those
district.
vendors.
Mhm.
Are the kids actually watching videos
Yes.
and being taught? So I want you to be clear that we purchased the software and then kids access a online teacher that will go through the process. Now, there are several different models. Some where we actually purchase software and the parents kind of run through the software that's online, that's pre-recorded and things like that. But then there's also where we have teachers that literally would get online just like we did at COVID and could teach. Now, we haven't decided on exactly which route we're gonna go, and that's part of the reason why we're talking to the board today. Is because there's several different models. We're gonna talk about it and see, number one, if the board is interested in for us to investigate further and look at the investment for our district to capture these kids. Because if you say, hey, yes, we want to go in this direction, then we're going to continue to pursue this. And we have next steps already prepared. Or if you say, hey, Spencer, we need to just think and focus on what we have right now, then we will do that, because we're gonna, serve at the direction of the board when it comes to this kind of stuff.
I know.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I don't know if we're there yet, but I think for myself, a big thing that this would help me be a proponent of to the community is time spent with the kids. Because it allows the parents to have more access to the children, and that was something with me. I mean, when I was holding my daughter, I'm like, I want to spend time with it. She's 19 now, and it goes by so fast. But I think that's a good point for some of the parents that want to actually participate, at home with their kids, if they can. I mean, not all parents can, if you got parents are working 2 jobs and stuff, each have a job, but
That sounds a
there's
little-
ways to pitch it.
But it sounds like you were homeschooling.
Yeah.
Sounds like the child's in front of a computer screen and it's an online real teacher or it's an online? like
It's a mix of
recorded?
both. You would have an overseeing teacher that would
The overseeing
support.
teacher would be ours,
Yes,
but the program is just a teacher that's been recorded. that's
Yeah, there's
presenting a lesson
pre-
or something.
pardon me, I'm
So-
sorry, but there are, basically there's pre-recorded and I'll be happy to bring the program with you. I personally haven't sat down and actually gone through it. I've just gone through what they offer and our students at Ishii are using it and we're seeing some positive results. The students it's encouraging and they're progressing and they're able to go through it with our intervention teacher support. So that's kind of what we were looking at. If this is working, this is something we should see if it could fit into this program if we do decide to move. So that's kind of where we're at. It's all preliminary. Nothing's decided. That's just the first vendor I have had the option to meet with and discuss. And they gave us a quote, which is pretty good, pretty comparable. So we'll talk more about that. I wanted to show this and you can see the program just has some key points. We would look at also incorporating like our SEL like we have with our some of our counselors and supports that way as well. Because we all saw during COVID how our generation now is distant. Our kids are a little more distant. They don't like the social interaction to get around people. Our kids are different now that went through COVID. It's completely different. So we want to make sure that we also are fostering that because a lot of times students that choose to be on virtual, we want to help them realize that when they get older, they're going to assimilate back and we're all part of a society and we all interact with each other and we have to kind of keep that social part. So that's why the counselor would be a solid part to help the program and to be there and available for our students.
Is part of the online program have a time where kids get together?
Yeah.
The kids?
And could that be done at the sites, like the school sites?
Yeah, we could rotate that and we would look at putting, we're looking at the model, we're kind of looking at starting with 4 teachers. That's kind of where we're looking at. We would have a part-time admin that would oversee the program as well. And I have cost breakdowns on here too that kind of give you an idea. And it's actually pretty staggering when you'll see what I'm talking about here. But here's some of the overview. It's a comprehensive online academy, personalized learning, social and emotional. We would also work on strengthening our communication and marketing efforts as a community, as a district. And then we would collaborate with stakeholders as well. We want to meet and get some input from the community as well. We would look at, it's pretty basic. I started this program in Fontana and now the program has, I think, about 24 teachers and a full-time director that oversees it. I started it with 1 class. And then since I've left, it's grown. And we started in that direction. So it's a big deal. But we start with 4 classrooms. Each classroom, we would either have 20 computers on site or we would issue the students. That's something that we're not 100% sure. Probably more of issuing the student 1-to-1 type situation like we already have. We would need an administrator of record, a counselor that does social and emotional academic guidance, 4 credential teachers, highly qualified, and then we would need a clerk, like a secretary or a clerk, but more of a clerk because it's a smaller type academic program. When you break down, we'd be looking at a part-time coordinator principal, we'd be looking somewhere in the 50s. A clerk would be somewhere in the 30, possibly more depending on how many hours a day they would work. Our teachers, for 4 teachers that are veteran, would be in this range. And then as far as an at-risk counselor would be similar to here, maybe a little bit more, give or take. We would look at the purchase of technology, computer supplies and curriculum would be about 100,000. So total, it would be just under 600,000 is what it would cost to start this program. And the reason why it's so cheap is because we're using existing facilities. We're not creating new, we have space all over the district in a couple different sites we could use. And then if you look at the ADA for that, it's a little bit different depending on what grade they're in for the ADA that we earn for each student. But just an example, we get about 11,000 per student. It's probably closer to 12 now. But if we had 200 students, that would generate $2.3 million in ADA. So that kind of shows you that this actually could be, we would be creating money that would be allowed to support the program in more areas. Adding outside vendors, adding more facilities, more access to maybe possible additional programs, allowing dual enrollment, and then maybe even supporting those dual enrollment programs, like we're gonna talk about agriculture later. So if we have a middle school kid that wants to do agriculture and virtual, that could happen, and we could actually support that with some of this funding. So it's actually a moneymaker and more of a supporter for our district and this program specifically.
You're not really thinking of 50 students per teacher.
Well, I will just tell you that that's all negotiated, and those are things that would happen, talks outside of this meeting. But as far as that, that's a standard for a lot of different schools, for online schools. If there's a curriculum already written and the teachers are just supporting, they're not directly instructing the students every day, that's a pretty standard caseload for online teachers. So I'm just saying, I'm not saying it's.
So I'd include it and allowed to do the virtual also.
We couldn't exclude, so we would have to find a way to include special ed in there as well. So one of the four may have to be a special ed, like a resource teacher. We wouldn't be able to offer the most restrictive program that we have. But we could look at like a least restrictive, like our resource students. We could probably look at adding those kinds of students, but it wouldn't be a fair placement for our more restrictive students. And that would be a discussion that would have to happen in an IEP and discussed with the team for best place.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, go ahead. Now, these teachers that we're looking to hire, or these teachers that we already have?
Standard practice in other districts have been, usually there's teachers within that want to apply for these. It happens quite a bit. I've seen it numerous times. It's usually where people from inside transfer, and then we have to fill the other positions that are, it's kind of a downward or a Jacob's ladder. Dominoes or Jacob's ladder.
What if, let's say our physical schools, right? Let's say they decide to go virtual and we decline on, it's the physical part. Then we've got teachers left with smaller classes. So now do we go to combining those classes? And, because you can't sit there and have like one teacher teach 5 kids. And, you got another teacher.
So what we're looking to do is, so number one, like if we turn on the switch, we wouldn't have 200 kids right away. Okay, we'd have to build this program up to 200 kids, okay? But as was shared earlier by Daryl, is we can pull from a huge pool of people. And there's waiting lists at various places. And we are really not, we want to serve Oroville, right? And our goal is to be able to give our families here as many educational options as possible, right? But we're also trying to shore up our decline in enrollment. And we can do this by pulling kids from neighboring communities, and not just Palermo and Thermalito. I'm talking Chico, I'm talking Sutter, because we can, those places we're gonna be able to serve. And so we're not looking to see, pull those 200 students out of our current enrollment. We're looking to pull these students from neighboring communities, neighboring districts. And sure, we will serve some of our own kids here, but we're looking at the bigger piece of the pie. Because we need to be able to draw on other communities to help us continue to be fiscally solvent. And I do think that our goal next year is to have 4 teachers and to have enough kids to pay for that, for the 600,000, which would be, 50 or 60 kids. Which based on what Daryl's saying is that if there truly are waiting lists out there, and we know the parents to talk to, we can pull those parents in immediately and say, hey, here's our program, here's what we're offering. And we grow that program the first year. And then we continue to build it. I wanted to have this meeting before we start to delve even deeper. But my previous district, who I still have a lot of very good friends in, post-COVID, they started a all virtual school. And I've already contacted them and they said, come on down and tour our school. We'll share everything that we have, from our plan to how we do it, to, the curriculum we use. And they would help us through help us avoid all the potholes that they have gone through in the last, 5 or 6 years since they've developed this. But our main thing is to, number one, give our parents here in Oroville more programs. Our Southside Community Center that we've offered, that was an additional program. We're turning away people, right? I'm gonna be coming back to the board saying, we're gonna expand that because they were full right away. I wanna give people here more choices. And at the same time, if we're bringing in revenue from neighboring areas, we need to do that too, because we've got to keep our schools fiscally solvent.
So
If I could, I
what
wanted
is the
to,
goal? Like, what do you want, when is the goal for
What's
this?
the timeline?
Like, what's your time frame that you
We
want?
would like to
see
see,
it?
we would like to start this in August.
and if I could, to address maybe something you were talking about, Sandra, is that I don't think the bulk of the students, or even to go, if we were to launch something like this, would come from our current schools, homeschooling your kid. And I speak from experience, it's not just something you can decide to do. It's everybody's affected, you have to make sure that the house, are both parents working job. It's a lifestyle that the family has to be involved with. And so I think that the way to get the students would be to go to existing, homeschool, other homeschool options or neighboring communities, but not necessarily. I mean, I'm sure that the classrooms currently might have to, if that's an option, there's gonna be people moving from the classroom to this program, but really, I don't think that's where the bulk of the students would come from. I think that, the target audience would be current homeschool parents that are already in.
Are you talking to me or Sandra? Oh.
Anybody who's listening.
Oh, okay.
No, I thought that was a good point, asking, are we gonna have empty classrooms with 5 students? And I don't think that'll be the case.
I'd like to see, when you come back, with more information on how it might affect IFLC too, and some of the safety nets that are gonna be in place. I remember teaching during COVID and, kids wandering off. Texting the parent, your child's been missing from the screen for 20 minutes now. Or your child can't cut that way, stop. You're trying to grab through the screen because the kid can't even hold in the scissors because there isn't anybody there. So, are they allowed to come back? Can they go back? It's kind of.
Would be a case by case, because if some of the kiddos aren't going to school because they're vaccine reversed, then.
Oh, no, that wouldn't be, I'm just saying if they're not passing, what is what happens?
So that's a good question, and some of that's gonna depend on which model we ultimately follow. Because that's where we're kind of taking your temperature of, what we want to do and how in depth we want to get with our, because we can purchase software where they get all their curriculum, and our teachers are just, always are continually checking in, right? And then there's that part where teachers are actually our own teachers are actually doing the classes, right?
Right.
And that's something that where we'll go down and look at other districts and how they do it and what they find to be most effective. And, talk with even some of the families you're dealing with and what they prefer and what they do, because I personally would like to, I know that during COVID, it was really hard for our teachers to wrangle those kids. So if we have software that they have to follow and the teachers have, the parents have to follow, and we just check in and make sure they're making adequate progress, I think that's gonna be the best method, but I wanna make sure that that's what the parents want, because we wanna build a good program.
I think it'd be important to recognize the fact that this is a situation that's so far removed from COVID, and the fact that this is something that the families on these waiting lists, the families that are in these virtual classrooms want, and that they're prepared to do already.
And I would say like our
Whereas
independent
we're
study
all
program right
following
now
the rules.
is we have kids that are in IFLC right now, that if they don't meet that certain standard, they get removed and they're brought back to their home school. I think in some cases, that's not gonna be the case, because I'm hoping to draw from other areas, and so they're not gonna go back into, an Oroville school. But if they are in one of our Oroville schools, the same's gonna apply. Is that, hey, if you're not gonna meet the standards of the online schooling, then you need to go to your home school, your home LEA.
So there's 2 points. The biggest thing is when you start a program like this, you can pull from adjacent counties. So you think about all the counties that are surround our county. We have Yuba, we have Nevada, we have Glenn, we have Sutter, we have Tahoma, we have all Tahoma. When you look around, sorry, I'm trying to work on that. I'm still new, I'm still getting there, but as far as all of those, we can pull from any of those counties. So our goal would be not to move students from our schools to an online program. Our goal would be to pull fresh students that aren't part of our current ADA. That would be our goal, and I'll be honest, I would see, once we have this, I would see this, and the understanding is when you have those orientation meetings with those parents and you accept those students, they have to understand that this is a choice and a lifestyle, that you have to be self-sufficient, parents have to support their students. It's not anything forced. It's not like COVID where all of us were told to go home, here's your computer, now you have to go to school. This is a chosen program that you have to choose to be a part of it, agree to be a part of it, and if it's not proficient and you're not proficient at it and it's not providing results, then there's another student on the waiting list that will bump right up to take your position after we give you plenty of opportunities to be successful. But there are kids that go online and it doesn't work for just because their parents have no other option for them. So there is that group too. I've seen those on the online program. So all of that is going to be taken into account. But the two things are, this is a voluntary program where they have to agree to terms. And then the other part is we're gonna try to reclaim ADA, not change ADA. So grab ADA from outside, not just change our own ADA. That's different. That's a completely different model. That's not what this model represents.
Couple things if I could, to go back to screen time, that was, I think, the first question I asked. And I like what you said about some of the kids being able to work at their own pace, because I do not think it's healthy. And wouldn't be into it if kids have to sit in front of a computer for 5 hours or 6 hours. No, terrible. And then as another note, I think that from some of the things I've been hearing with the parents lately, I'm not sure, but I think it's worth looking into. I know South Sutter and Sequoia Grove changed things this year in regards to their testing to get the funds, because you don't just get, and I'm sure, everybody finds loopholes in any areas, and it might, but my point is you have to do the testing before the funds are released to the parents, because that is how those schools are going to be getting their funding too. And from what we talked about tonight, I think that you guys would be ahead of the curve in that sense. I don't know the specifics, and I think it would be worth looking into what they changed this year, but both of those schools changed the testing before funds are released to the parents. And it sounds like you guys are ahead of that. You know, so something to think about, because they're still held to the California testing standards.
Yeah, those are federal requirements. You have to have a state assessment, and so what they're doing is for them to get those funds and those categorical funds, they have to meet certain standards, and one of them is having an assessment. So that's what they're doing. They're completing the assessment, because without that, they would withhold their funds, their categorical funds.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where are the starting costs coming from?
We haven't really gone down the path of what exactly it is that we're gonna be building. We have some general idea. We do have a couple different pools of money, and we have some new one-time money coming in from the governor, so. Depending on how much, I mean, literally the startup costs would be
Won't be that high.
minimal. I mean, you're talking about. 4 sets of Chromebooks, and then curriculum, right? Those are the only real startup costs.
Teachers.
Well, the
What's
teachers,
gonna be the
Mhm.
principal, the clerk, teachers, the
Well, so I'm gonna,
but I mean, we're gonna have, so
one counselor for.
well, so I don't think we're gonna have a full-time counselor dedicated to this group of kids, okay? This is just kind of a snapshot. I think our teachers might be a little bit more, I think our counselors can be a little bit less. I don't wanna get too far ahead of it,
I'm just wondering where the.
but like Laura Fox, you know, we've talked to her about running this program. She's a coordinator in the district office, but also overseeing this program, and so
Those funds would be already existing because we're matriculating existing staff. So those funds are not, okay,
depending on the different types of costs,
right,
there'll be different types of pools of money that we'd be able to access. But until I have a real solid idea as to exactly what apply, I wouldn't be able to tell you specifically, but the teachers would be general ed teachers, right? Those come out of the general pool of money. In the revenue would go into the general pool of money.
so it's just a reallocation of funds for.
It's like having it's like having 4 classrooms, right? And some other additional costs. But for startup costs, those are things that we might be able to find little pools to cover that. Because there is the Learning Recovery Block Grant funding that we have that's getting renewed according to the governor's new budget. So those are things that's funding we could use. It's categorical on something like this. But I'm not sure exactly how much startup we're really talking about. I don't think it's very much. Because the biggest expense you could have would be facilities. And I do think we have a couple of campuses where we have adequate facilities to house this program. Already, they're empty. So that I don't really see as a big issue. So there isn't really like, $1 million of viability to get a lease.
I'm just kind of curious, and that has kind of to do with you, but not that you ever thought of it. I wonder if it's public though. So as a vendor that he serves students that are online, would he be able to take students from under ours as a board member?
It's a conflict.
A conflict. I'm just curious. And I'm not saying I don't wanted to or anything. I'm just was thinking about it. Would that be?
Yeah.
We'd have to go down that path and see what the conflict of interest would be. It might just be that he recuses himself from voting on this topic. If we get to that point,
He would be considered a
so,
state.
but at this point, he doesn't have any economic interest in
No, he
this
would be
discussion.
paid by I'm just curious.
yeah, so right now, so right now, he could vote. He can vote on this plan, he can be part of it, but once some of these students start to matriculate into his program, then anything that's related to this, he would have to recuse himself.
He wouldn't be considered a part of an employee?
Well, we'd have to go down that road because, for example, if his wife is the one who owns the dojo and he just works there, it's the same as we use the South Side and she's an employee of the South Side, so she has to recuse herself when we vote on those kind of things. But she's indirectly benefiting from it, so she's gotta recuse herself, but, you know, there's a lot of complications to that, but right now, we wanna focus on this, and then when we get to that point, we can talk about.
So the last steps of this, of course, is filing a CDS code application with the state. So what we would need to do probably in pretty soon would be to have this as an agenda item, and we would discuss the interest for the board to move forward with the creation of the virtual academy. And we would have a vote for consensus that we would use, and that would be attached to the CDS application that is sent to the CDE for approval. So that's the next steps that would happen at a later time, if the board so chooses.
I feel good about it. I'd like to see some more of it too. You know, more details.
Daryl,
Yeah, I'm good. I think it's a good idea.
Bill,
Sure. I generally don't support this type of stuff, and I don't see myself supporting this, but I'm willing to hear it.
Any thoughts?
I just don't, I think that people look for ways to avoid doing certain things and conforming to certain things. I think socialization is missed. I think there's, you can't hide at home forever. I mean, there's bad people everywhere you go, and you gotta know how to deal with them. You miss the learning the nuances of a group and just a lot of social things that you miss. And I think that when you release a child after all these years sitting in front of a computer, I read one thing on here where it says they're allowed to set their own schedule. Well, where in the world do we get to do that? I mean, I just finally got to start doing that. I mean, so that's just, you have to conform to certain things, and I'm sorry that you don't like being there at 8, but it's like a job. It starts at 8. That's when you gotta be there. So I'm just not inclined to do stuff like that. And that might be just an old way of thinking too. I mean, I think that there's too much computer stuff, and I'm starting to sound like my dad now, but it's just, you gotta get out there and be in the world. You can't. So sitting behind a screen just doesn't do it. We saw that with COVID.
Right.
I mean, it just didn't work.
One of the things of being in retail is that you recognize that you don't have to agree with the customer to bring them in and make you buy your product.
Well, but I don't think that
I
talking about.
completely agree. I
It's
completely agree.
it's
It wouldn't
not
be
a,
right for my kids. And I would not support it, and it crushed me when I had to take Zachary to the hospital because of the stress that anti-socialization was causing him because of COVID.
Mhm.
And it still puts that stone in my gut, just thinking about it. But I can't judge other people's parenting. I mean, at least they have parents, at least the parents
Well, how
care
do you
enough.
know? I mean,
Precisely.
how do you even know who's doing the work? I mean, somebody signed in and they were present. How do
And
you know
now
who did it?
we have the problem with the AI. Now we have to cross that bridge. But ours is, again, there's not.
I think there's a huge difference between homeschooling and what we're suggesting. I think to me, it's just a bridge too far. I mean,
Yeah.
I just don't see, how do I know who's doing what? I mean, that's just.
Maybe a more intensive or on hands curriculum.
well,
I mean, I don't know, that's what I'm hoping to learn, is to hear more, cause I don't know, I'm just imagining in my mind what this is.
so I'm gonna talk to you instead of talking to you as a superintendent, just for 1 second, as a father, right? I sent my kids to school. I agree with you 100%. Kids need to be in school. I encourage our families to have their kids in our school. I'm a public superintendent, and by and large, 95% of our kids go to school, or they're required to go to school every day. Okay? What we're trying to do is we're trying to capture some of the things that we're losing as far as ADA, so that we can help us continue to be solvent. But I also do believe in choice for our families. Okay, now, I would never choose this kind of program. But I want to give families in our community and surrounding communities that option. Because there are some people out there that, after the shooting at Feather River, said, I'm not bringing my kid back to school. And I understood that. I may not fully agree with it or understand it, but I certainly can go, okay. So now, me as a superintendent, I can say, hey, okay, good luck to you. Or I can say, hey, I have a niche program that might work well for you and your family. And that's why I want to say, hey, Oroville, I have this program and this program and this program and this program. I choose my number one program in my mind, which is come to school every day. But if that doesn't make sense to you and your family, then I have this. And for some of the reasons that you shared earlier, Daryl, you know, like vaccinations and things like that. If you want to come to school, you have to have vaccinations. Okay? Now, we can work through some of those issues in this program, right? Is that accurate, Troy? I mean, that was one of the questions I had.
Well, being they would need to have the same registration as any CDS California school, which means they would have to have their vaccinations.
So maybe.
There is a way I mean, there are waivers you can get, but from what I've seen, the experience, because I worked in alternative ed for a long time and helped families and worked through them. There is a waiver, but you have to get a doctor to sign the waiver, and there's not too many doctors out there that'll sign a waiver that the student should not have their vaccinations.
And they also use
That's where the
religious.
So bad example, okay, bad example. But my point being is, we want to give people options. And so, Bill, I'm not asking you to think, hey, you know, this is a great idea for kids. I'm looking for support to say, hey, let's move in, let's get more information. And then let's see if this is a viable option for, you know, those niche families. You know, we're not talking about the 2,000 kids. I'm talking about, you know, the 200 kids.
That live in the sticks and don't have any other option.
Well, but live in surrounding counties, you know, because that's where I want to get. I want to get surrounding areas so that we can pick up that revenue that we so need.
And Dr. Holton, you remember our discussion last week where we talked to a teacher at Ophir that let us know that 4 students left because they were going to an online program. So not only there are ultimately what it comes down to in education, we have parents that are choosing this. And we want to be able to provide that here. And for our students that are saying, no, I want an online program like we discussed last week, we want to be able to offer that. So we're giving them the choice, exactly what Dr. Holton said, but also we are losing people from our district going to online programs. We really are. So we want to be able to offer them, and there will always be a debate which program is better, but ultimately it comes down to the choice. And we have parents that are choosing that, and we don't currently have that option.
Well, and that just goes, cause I do agree. I personally would never put Shalene in a program like this or allow her to be in a program like this, but
She was
because,
so hardened to gymnastics.
yeah, you know, because it does take away from socialization. It does also take away from education, because what if the parent isn't there to watch the child get on? What is it that parent isn't on there for them to sit there and do your homework? And yeah, because that's where we got the low test scores when it came from COVID, because parents were not at home, you know, on top of the child to do their work. So I mean, but I do understand we have to roll with the times, basically, to try to capture these kids, but at the same time, you know, I mean, these kids we're just letting them fly by, but at the same time, you know, this is what parents are choosing for their kids. You know, we don't have that ability to sit there and say, no, we don't sit there and say that your child has to come to school. And we can't do that. So, I mean, I'm open to you finding out more information, Spencer, and bringing it back to the board, and letting us see something that will show that there's some kind of success, since there is a program in place. What's the success rate on this? And how are the children learning? Like, we would like some more information on that, because right now success rate is a big thing, because we see our scores, we want to see improvement, we want to see differences, so we want to see what this program can do.
If I could bring up one more thing, and I do think it's important, and that's one of the reasons I thought it was pretty cool with this, because this program would have access to school facilities for various, like, you know, gatherings and such. And I'll speak as a homeschool parent. I think that's the biggest myth. Boy, when I said I'm gonna homeschool to my family, nobody liked it. And how are you gonna socialize with your daughter? Like, man, my daughter is a crutcher. She's had ample time to socialize. And I can speak for a lot of the people that I know that homeschool. You know, I've been involved in various homeschool communities, but I think that's probably the biggest myth about homeschooling. And we've had, you get the time and the freedom to teach your kid how to socialize, and arguably under more controlled circumstances, because the parents would have the you know, and that could even go with various vendors. Like, when you're taking your kid to, all right, we're going to participate in football, we're going to participate, those are forms of socializing, and it's a bit more controlled than let's just hang out. I can speak for myself. I spent way too much time hanging out when I was a teenager, and I wish I had more controlled social things. Like, I didn't play sports when I was in high school, but those things to encourage with this program, to get out and do things like that, any type of sports or music or things where you can gather. And I think it would be cool that you'd be able to use the facilities to just even, you know, assemblies or something, to give the experience of maybe these homeschool kids the experience of going on campus and what that's like to gather with everybody else. Because that's important too. You want to take a child and not isolate them, but be like, oh, here, all these people are doing this too. But I do think the biggest myth of homeschooling is lack of socialization. You know, I think that's a myth.
I'd like to see how they socialize on campus. If they come for an assembly or they just dropped off, who's in charge of them, do the parents stay? I think kind of more details on that. Because I'm with you, we're older. And I taught TK and K for so many years that I know the importance of having those kids interacting all day long and all the things that they do. And it's more than just the curriculum that we do in there, you know, music and the dance and the interaction and the games, and it's just so much going on.
So can you bring
coming with the times.
information? We really, would love to see.
So what I will do is I will take a cohort or a team, a mixture of different individuals. I've already reached out to some teachers to see if they'd like to go down and view a program.
Where is it at? Where is this at?
This is in Southern California. Now, there are more local ones.
Well, if this is such a good idea, then why don't you just Zoom down there or virtually go? Why do you gotta physically go? What's the
You
point?
need to
Just
open it up
virtually
to-
go.
We just pick a few people, you never know who might be interested.
I'm teasing.
No, I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about staff.
Well, yeah, I don't want to take the whole staff on a field trip
I
to
get
Southern
that, but you
California.
gotta open up, you'd be surprised, you never know. If you zoom on a few, you.
Okay. I will open it up.
The way
But,
that you feel fit.
Yes, the reason I chose that program is because I know those people and they're gonna give me honest feedback. They're not gonna just
Say it something.
try to sell me something. They're gonna tell me, they're friends of mine, they're gonna tell me, hey, we tried this model, don't do it, and here's why, you know, so on and so forth. And so with your blessing, I will put together and I will kind of throw it out there to see who wants to go. And then we'll do interviews and see.
Lottery.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead and move on to artificial intelligence, AI.
So I don't have a long discussion about this. I just want to let the board know that, you know, at the CSBA conference. It was a conference. There was like. Okay, you guys. Stop. That we're gonna start looking into, you know, how this can benefit our district. Google, who is our main provider for our platform for email and all of our other online tools, offers Gemini And we're looking to see how this kind of service can make the work smarter, not harder for our staff members. I don't want to go into detail, but I just want to let you know that we are looking into this, and we want to be proactive with technology. Some technology I don't like, and other technology is awesome. And since that conference last month, I've used artificial AI more in the last month than I have in my whole life. And it has, the more I use it, the more intelligent I get, and you know how to use it, because I'm kind of
More intelligent you get.
okay.
It's got some good fancy words.
I don't know. I've been here 3 hours.
Right on three.
I'm sorry. I love my board. That's what I have to tell myself. I love my board. I love it.
Love my children.
I'm getting more and more proficient. And it is improving the work that I do. And I just want you to know that we're looking into other means of training our staff, and that's all. And we're just looking into it right now.
And I've met with the Butte County Office of Ed staff about their recommendations about AI. Their main recommendation is don't ever let your staff use the free ones online. And participate in one paid for platform like Google Gemini, and that's it. So you have one AI tool, and but by having something like Gemini on board, you then aren't asking your staff to go find their own free ones, which is where you get into trouble with AI, because nothing's free on the internet, right? They collect your information, spit that back out, right? That's how they make their money. So their recommendation was just pick one and have that be the one for the district, and then that should solve the main concerns that they have about it.
How much is something like that, if you buy one? Just out of
I'll
curiosity.
look into it on what the licensing would be like for Gemini. I don't know if it's included in our Google Apps for education, because we have a contract with Google, because we have Google and, we have all of our Chromebooks are Google, so we have special educational pricing. Used to be free, but I'll look and see if that's included in what we already have, or if it's an add-on, but that's be more information I can bring back to the board.
I think Skynet is pretty inexpensive.
Oh, man, Troy, we were just talking, we weren't gonna say Skynet at this meeting about AI, and then you brought it up.
Okay, move on.
Wait, before you move on, I just want to make sure that it's not just staff that they get trained and use, because it's coming. And same for the students, especially in the middle schools. You know, they're using it, and in the high school, the teachers are having expectations with how they're using it. And I think in businesses, when you get out, I just really think we need to make sure we're ahead of the curve there a little bit and get going on that, so our staff and students start to learn the correct way to use it, especially students.
So I think we
So
were,
they use it.
so we are sitting next to, I think we were sitting together in one of the sessions where they talked about that. And so we're looking into practitioners that are
Yes.
teachers that are using it to come and help train us. But I just want to kind of just set the table saying, hey, this is coming, this is here, right?
Yes.
And we can either just ignore it, or we can jump on it. And you're right, we have to train our students how to do it, because this is the next thing. So, okay.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to attendance.
I just want you to know that we are working very hard on our attendance. Our attendance stinks. It's gotten better this year. We are doing tons of programs to incentivize kids. Our chronic absenteeism last year was 34%. This year it's at 30%. So we're improving, but it's still not great. Our attendance overall is improved by, by what we believe to be about 1%.
Almost two.
So that's good, but we're continuing to improve that. Principals, take a minute to, just kind of say, yeah, board, we're doing a lot.
We're sharing it with families. I have it posted, previous month's attendance posted on our our board up front, I showed on Parent Square, we're up to, in December, we were at 94% attendance rate, which I think is right around where the district is wanting us. I'm pushing for 96 because that's better. But yeah, I'm meeting with parents all the time, the chronic absentee parents, the ones that will show up to the meetings and meet with me. And just try to figure out how we can help support them, not to bat them over the head, but most of them have things going on and how we can support them in getting their kids to school every day.
Vince, 1 minute.
Sure. It's more of a struggle in middle school. But we are working on that. We have incentives supported by our district administration from day one to right now. Whether it be with the American Ninja Warriors, whether it be with the bikes incentive, we're putting the incentives out there. Whether it be, even perfect attendance with the superintendent. So we're putting a lot of things out there, more so than all the schools that I have been to. But there's not so much a catch, because to me, I think of the basic needs of our middle school kids are not being met. We're talking about over 82% of our kids low income, and some of those decisions are being made by kids and not so much the parents. So there is a struggle there, and especially at the studios.
Thank you.
Years ago, we used to have, you had SARB and the district attorney, and that kind of all faded off. Is there any?
So we're doing our own individual, the school site's doing the SARB type stuff. Without the support of the district attorney, and they're understaffed and can't take that on. We haven't put a lot of time and effort into a district SARB because we haven't found it to be a good use of our time. It really comes down to the individual schools because they're the ones that know the family. They're the ones who know the students. And we are seeing an improvement. I have numbers here. Studios, last year, 30% of their students were chronically absent last year, and now they're down to 24.6%. So they're doing better. Oakdale was our best site last year at 27%, and they've trickled up a little bit to 29%. But John's meeting with those families. We're working on it. But our middle schools have put the most emphasis on it with the Ninja Warriors incentives and things. And they're the ones who've made the most inroads to that. But I know everybody's working on it, and yes.
One of our biggest issues, some of our biggest offending families, not offending, but some of the families that have the biggest issue with attendance aren't even in our area. They're coming to us from Thermalito or Palermo, so trying to work with those families and not having to send them back to their home district because we want to keep them. But that's one of the challenges we're having.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and move on to agricultural program.
So we have quite a bit of information to share about an agricultural program that we want to share with you tonight. We're 3 hours into this. So I don't know if the board would like to wait until our next board meeting to have a discussion about this, or if you guys would like to just jump into it and maybe give a brief overview of what we'd like to do.
I think it's up to you guys.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because.
well,
Retired.
Huh?
I'm retired.
Oh, you're retired? I think you said I'm tired. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm rushed it up.
So,
I
Go
can quickly give just some thinking points and then maybe come back next morning.
Yeah.
So I think I was voluntold to share this because I was born and raised in Durham. We're a big agriculture school. And then went out of the area to teach and came back in the last 6 years. I was the principal at the intermediate school where we had a middle school agriculture program. Spencer talks about, making more opportunities for our kids. Gridley Unified has middle school ag and, most in Durham, and then most you know, the closest is Palermo, and I have sat and talked with the Palermo principal. Part of the way they work in their agriculture program is they do have student teacher at 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and they have a full-time ag teacher that is agriculture credentialed in agriculture. And they have a charter, so those kids could participate in FFA. So what that means is they do all the FFA stuff that the high school does under a charter, and they're probably under the Las Plumas charter. So you can be under a high school charter. And then what they do is at fairs, they could show as an FFA instead of a 4-H student. They could show as an FFA student, which is big for middle school kids. So when you talk about bringing in a ag program into the middle school, you have tons of options, but what you will need is a charter, and middle schools can make their own charter. They have to do an application. They have to have bylaws written up. We would go through Humuni, and who's the regional representative of the area. And we would have to apply for that. So the middle school could hold their own charter, or we can ask the high school to go under their charter. Being that they've already had Palermo's, I'm not quite sure the laws or regulations on that, but we can move forward with checking into that to see if they could hold two middle schools under their high school charter. So that's the charter. And then if you're gonna move forward with the kids being able to participate in FFA under a charter, you need the appropriately credentialed teacher, which is an ag teacher, or this is considered a career technical education, CTE. So you'll hear us say CTE pathway, which is a pathway kids take in high school, but they could start it at middle school. And it could be an ag credential teacher, or it could be somebody in the industry that gets, I think they call it a designated agricultural or natural resources credential, which they just have to prove that they've been in the industry for that long, and they have to apply for it through the state, and then they could be the teacher of record. And then the curriculum needs to be California's standard-based curriculum for agriculture. Troy did some research on what those curriculums look like. We could have ag in the middle school and just teach ag as an elective and somehow rotate it through on every quarter, or it could be a year-long elective. But to take it to that next level and compete with the districts that are close, you'd have to have the whole charter, and so these kids could be part of FFA. And what that could look like, I mean, there's so many options for programs. What that could look like is in 6th and 7th grade, they have a quarter class that they rotate through electives, and it just happens that the ag class is part of their rotation, so they have it for a quarter, and then they take a different elective the next quarter, and a different elective the next quarter. I'm working with middle schools on their master schedules for next year, so that could be an option. But in 8th grade, if they're participating in FFA, they do all the SAE projects, and that needs to be year-long. It's a year-long elective for them that they stay in all year long, just like a high school class. If we're really looking at Ishii Middle School being a CTE pathway school, just like Studios is our VAPA school, then it could be where 6th graders they're required to take a career class, a career exploration class their 6th grade year. In 7th grade year for a quarter. In 7th grade year, they have an option for an ag class for a quarter. And then in 8th grade, they volunteer to take that elective all year for FFA. That could be an option. It could be that 7th and 8th grade are all year programs as well, with the option of going in FFA. At Durham, we just did the 8th graders. We found that they all wanted to do it. They all wanted to stay in there all year. And so it was too many kids that wanted to take that elective in 8th grade. So too many kids if you do 7th and 8th grade together. If you just did 8th grade, we had about 25 kids a year participate in the ag program. So there's lots of options that we can explore later and talk about later at a different time of how that would look, but the requirements would be the credentialing and the charter and the curriculum.
So when we were unable to get our bond and we're starting to talk about, some career technical pathways up at issue and, looking at facilities and things like that. I was hoping to, put together a whole program. The bond didn't pass. So I'm looking at, some cheaper options, right? Because we don't have enough money to put in a multi-million-dollar building to do career technical pathways. So that was one of the reasons we're going to ag, because it's a cheaper alternative. You don't need as, we have some of those facilities and things already. But here's the other piece. Palermo is siphoning up a lot of our sixth grade students because they want to be in that program. And when I say a lot, I'm talking about 20 kids a year. Like you said, it's about 20, 25. Some of those kids are our kids, and some of those kids are our top kids, some of our top families. And the ed code, when you want to go, if you live in our district and want to go to a neighboring district, I can deny that. But when they have a program that I don't have, I have to automatically let them go. And we're declining enrollment, and I'm letting all these families go because I have to, and we follow the law here in this district. And if I offer that program, I can start to say, hey, guys, we have that program. It's at Ishii Hills. I'm denying, your interdistrict transfer. Now, it is going to take us a couple of years to kind of really build this program. But even today, because this board agenda was out there, I received an email from an Ishii Hills teacher who has an ag degree. And is saying, hey, I'm interested in teaching ag. Okay, so we haven't even started talking to people, and I already have people talking to me about teaching ag. And
Big deal in our area.
Pardon?
It's a big deal in our area. A lot of kids do 4-H. My kids did 4-H and did sheep, pigs, my grandkids do.
So again, we, as my team and as a district, we're trying to put together programs that are of interest to this area. And so not only that and I'm just looking to retain our kids, but we can also look to build. And it's gonna have to start slow, but we want to be able to get to a point where, our 8th graders are, part of a charter and get to show up at the fairs and things like that. And I'm not looking to, save the world through this program, but I do want to be able to offer it. I do want to be able to, when needs be, deny families to go to neighboring districts. And I don't want to be Scrooge, but at the same time, I'm your superintendent, and I want to protect our district and our assets. But at the same time, offer really good programs for our kids.
Who are you trying to convince?
I don't know. It's good for kids. It's good for kids. But I'm also trying to convince you because I know that we've got a lot of stuff going on, right? But you heard from that parent earlier, about, we don't always see as, board members and even as cabinet, some of the influences that some of the programs we brought. But Bill, we had a parent come in here and tell us how great VAPA was, and how it's making a difference for their child. And I know it's keeping kids in our schools. It's not doing everything that we want it to do. Vince and I have had a conversation of how we're gonna, try to continue to build it and be more strategic. But I want to continue to do those type of things. And we're just bringing, hey, this is where we want to go. And we just want to get your blessing to continue to investigate and do work on this.
And another piece to this is, I'm helping middle schools build their master schedules starting now for next year. And trying to build that VAPA program is a big piece that needs to be worked into the master schedule. And trying to build an ag program is a big piece that needs to be worked into master schedule. So this is something we need to, think about, how we're gonna move forward so that we could get that booked.
Oh, this is important. I mean, my daughter has been doing FFA. She's in Las Plumas right now. And she's been doing it for 3 years, and this is her senior year, and she plans on doing it as an independent for the next couple of years, because she loves it that much. So this is a program that, it's taught her a lot, and I mean, it is something that they teach a lot of. They not only teach, agriculture, but ag science, that goes along with it. So this is something that I believe, could benefit definitely our middle school, because, there is, when they get to high school, they want to do it. And then there's so many kids that they have to do a lottery, because not everybody can do it, because there's only so many pigs that they can take. So it is a competitive thing as well. So if we were to offer it in middle school, to kind of like, get them in there and sit there and let them experience that, if they're not able to do it while they're in high school, because there were so many things they want to do in high school, because, it's their last years of high school. So they wanted to then try to get all these things in. So I think this is a really good program that I think it should be looked at. And I do have to say to Spencer that, I mean, if we weren't here trying to grasp for things, because our measure did not pass, then we wouldn't really be doing our jobs, and you wouldn't be doing yours. So we're just in there trying to figure out ways to sustain, because we didn't get the money. We're finding other ways, and that's what we do. And when
Stronger.
right, and that's what builds character. You don't depend on what others could have given you. You just go for what you can go for and what we can do to better our families. So I think that the two issues that have come up, the FFA and as well as the virtual, is something that we can definitely look into. And if these are things that are going to beef up our ADA, and it will make us better and put us out there in the community to where, we're making a change and we're making a difference. And that's what we're here to do, right? We're here to make a change, and we're here to better our kids, and we're here to continue and progress in a progressing world that has gone to AI, that has gone to so much, higher methods than what we're used to, just pen and paper. And now everything is computer. Kids don't even know how to dial a phone because it's all cell phone. So, and it's just the world we live in. And so we have to keep up with the times, and we have to, as much as I hate, I'm probably a little older than Bill. I'd hate to sit there and say, but I do feel the same way. Kids should stay in school. I mean, that's just me. But the thing is that right now kids are going through so much different emotional things that school really is not something that they can hone into. So virtual and FFA, I think these are two of the great things that have come out of this meeting tonight. And I think that exploring more of a possibility for each of these and continuing on, I think that pulling in more kids and seeing how we can reach kids, and it's just, and I have to sit there and say, this is not the first time that I've come across, I've been on a lot of boards and a lot of other things. And this is not the first time I've come across where, people don't give you money. Because that makes you stronger, right? They don't give you everything. You don't expect it. We would like to have had that support, but we didn't. But guess what? We're gonna continue to build. We're gonna get stronger. And the people are gonna sit there and see, man, they really are about their business. So I appreciate this board and all their opinions and all their, their thoughts. And that's what makes us a board. That's what makes us strong, is that everybody's got their own opinion about something, but at the end of the day, we do know that it's all about keeping up our ADA, and it's all about what's best for the interest of our children. So thank you, Spencer, for reaching out for these two things that you have brought us tonight. And I'm happy to sit there and see what we can do next.
I'm new to this whole system, and I got sworn in December, and that board meeting still kind of reverberates, scared the heck out of finding out we're a couple $1 million in deficit. And this is where my mind started going when I mentioned that maybe a virtual thing. I think anything that we can do to add students, by checking the market, and it's like, okay, kids want agriculture. I'm a big fan of agriculture anyway. I think it's a great gig, but man, we got to turn it around. And when I asked us at the last meeting is, when was the last year, outside of the anomaly of COVID, that attendance started going this way? Because for me, I'm really interested in turning the ship around. How do we get more kids enrolled in the programs? And times are changing, and so we gotta be with it. But that December meeting, it still sits with me, like we're in deficit spending, and if we don't make some decisions now, the decisions that are gonna be on our table in 2 or 3 years, they're gonna be rough. They're not gonna get any better. So, but yeah, I'm all for the agriculture, anything we can do to bring more kids into the programs, let's do it. You're gonna get my vote.
That's all we have.
Anything else from the board or from the staff? I would like to adjourn the meeting at 10:11.